Picture this, a mountain, a cursed mountain. On top of that mountain, there's a 15-year-old boy standing in the middle of a lightning storm he created himself, completely out of mana, completely out of options, staring down a water dragon the size of a small apartment building that was summoned by 6 mages who pulled every drop of energy they had specifically to delete this one kid off the face of the earth. And the dragon breathes, and it hits. Direct, center mass. Should be lights out, should be a funeral, should be a highlight reel. Nobody watches twice because it ends too fast. But then the smoke clears, and he is still standing. Not because of some last-minute power-up, not because a mentor arrived, not because love and friendship unlocked a new form, but because somewhere deep inside this 15-year-old body, something ancient and absolutely unhinged decided today was not the day. Red lightning cracks across his skin like God himself is buffering. The dragon turns around and starts attacking the people who summoned it. The mages are screaming, the soldiers are running, and our boy is just standing there like he does not even remember deciding to do any of this. Bro, who's this kid? Alright, rewind, because if I just started there, you would think this is some standard Chosen One story and walk away. This is not that. This is something way more unhinged. Because that 15-year-old body up on that mountain, it is not actually 15 years old inside. Inside that body is a 40-year-old Korean man who spent his entire adult life becoming the undisputed greatest combat sports athlete on the planet, defending his title 17 times, never losing a single fight, and then spent his retirement playing a video game so hard for 10 years that he beat the final boss right before God looked down, saw a man with literally nothing left to conquer, and said, "You know what? Not on my watch," and struck his apartment with a golden lightning bolt and yeeted his entire soul into a fantasy world. Kim Jin-ho, Upsay legend, last savior world champion, currently operating inside the body of Zed Aran, the youngest and most embarrassing son of the most powerful mage family in the entire empire. A kid so magically useless his own family dumped him in a death prison and told history to forget his name. 0 mana, 0 allies. Zero idea what is going on, but 100 and everything else. So when Zed opens his eyes for the first time in this world, it is raining. He is wearing an orange prison uniform, and some kid with the number 72 on their shirt is grabbing him by the shoulder, screaming that they need to run right now because this is the last chance to escape the butcher's prison. And Zed, a man who spent 40 years staring down world champions, just blinks, looks around, sees a few hundred prisoners in a tug of war with the front gate like it is a Black Friday sale, looks at the flags on the wall, and quietly recognizes the eagle pattern from the game he spent a decade of his life mastering. He is inside Last Savior, the actual video game. God really looked down at this man, saw that he beat the final boss, and said, "Congratulations, here's a new save file. Good luck." Now, any normal person at this point is having a full breakdown, but Zed takes approximately 4 seconds to process the situation and immediately starts making decisions because 40 years of championship fighting does something to a man's threat assessment, and his threat assessment is screaming because something is wrong. The most secure prison in this entire world does not just fall into chaos because the warden stepped out for a snack run. This whole riot feels staged, feels like a trap, and the moment that thought clicks, Zed grabs 72 by the collar and drags them in the exact opposite direction of where everyone else is sprinting. 72 is losing their mind, screaming, biting, calling him a maniac, and Zed is just hauling him backwards like a carry-on bag. Then the gate swings open, and the prisoners pour out celebrating like they won the Champions League, and then arms start flying. Literally, limbs are separating from bodies at the front of that gate because Director Clark was never gone. He set the whole thing up, walked his men right around the back and waited, and now the walls are being painted a completely new color, and everyone who thought they were about to be free is running back inside screaming. Clark surveys the carnage with the energy of a man who does this before breakfast and says, and I am paraphrasing, that this place really is full of pathetic worms, then orders his troops to finish the job. Zed watches all of this and just quietly goes, "Yeah, that is what I thought." And bro, it is like someone hit copy paste on the entire prisoner population because it is just wall to wall shaved heads and matching uniforms. Zed and 72 are literally the only 2 people in this entire line with hair, which at this point feels less like a coincidence and more like the universe telling you exactly who the main characters are. 72 is standing next to Zed and almost throws up from the smell of everything that just happened. Actually, no, they do throw up right there in their own hand, which is somehow worse than just letting it hit the floor. And for the crime of moving while vomiting, a guard walks over and punches them in the face, just like that. Zed watches this happen and internally makes a note, because if these people are throwing hands at kids for getting sick, then a riot in this prison is not a question of if, it is a question of when, and he would rather not be caught in the middle of it unarmed. Then Clark walks up to Zed specifically. This man is built like a skyscraper that decided to hate mages as a personality trait. He leans down into Zed's face and tells him that the Arahan name is going to regret surviving today, then walks away like he did not just threaten a teenager in front of everybody. And Zed looks at his own reflection in a puddle of something he would rather not identify, and for the first time sees the face of this body he woke up in. 15 years old, red eyes, Arahan blood, so they really did throw him in a death prison and forget about him. Good to know. A week passes, blue sky, beautiful day, and Zed is stacking rocks. Not because there is a wall being built somewhere. Not because civilization requires it. The rocks get stacked on one side and then carried to the other side, and that is the whole job. It is punishment disguised as labor, and it is working because Zed's new body is absolutely cooked. This thing is running out of breath, carrying a single boulder. The synchronization window is still loading in the background like a Windows update nobody asked for on the one day you actually need your computer. And on top of that, every attempt at using magic produces exactly nothing. Zero, not even a spark, which makes no sense because the Arahan family is the #1 mage bloodline on the continent. You're telling me their throwaway kid has zero magic? Then it hits him. That is exactly why they threw him away. In a family of supernatural geniuses, being born without mana is basically showing up to a Lamborghini dealership on a bicycle. They did not just cut him off. They sent him somewhere he was supposed to quietly disappear so the family name would never have to be associated with the embarrassment. Elegant, really, horrifying, but elegant. Lunch arrives. And I am using the word lunch very generously because what gets served is water, bread that has the structural integrity of dry cement, and the memory of better days. Ryu, who Zed has started to clock as his cellmate in Shadow, shows up and asks if he is eating the bread again. Zed says no and slides it over without a second thought. And Ryu eats it immediately while Zed does mental calculations about body weight and caloric intake like the competitive athlete he actually is inside. Now, about Ryu. There is something going on with this person. Young, clearly street smart, keeps hanging around Zed like there is a reason for it. Zed cannot figure out if Ryu is genuinely friendly or running some kind of long con. He files it under watch carefully and moves on. Ryu warns him that because of all the extra workload Zed accidentally caused by being too efficient with the rocks, everyone in the prison is now annoyed at him. Also, prisoner number 5089 is watching him. Former arena fighter, known for violence. Leader of what Zed has started mentally calling the Bald Gang because at this point he and Ryu are genuinely the only two people in this prison with hair, and the statistical impossibility of that is starting to feel personal. Before Ryu even finishes the warning, 5089 and his entire crew are already walking over. The man's hand is the size of Zed's head. He slams it into the ground next to Zed's face hard enough to crack stone because obviously subtlety is not this man's strong suit, and announces that Zed's little productivity problem has been making everyone else's life harder. Zed would like to point out that it is technically not his fault. 589 does not care. And then Zed grabs this man, who is roughly the size of a refrigerator, by the back of the neck and drives a knee directly into his chin. Crisp, clean, textbook, the kind of knee that ends highlight reels. And 59 stands back up. Zed takes a moment to appreciate this. That knee would have finished anyone on Earth. And this man is just standing there smiling, which means the stats in this body have not fully loaded yet. He's a sports car running on one cylinder, because the moment 5089 grabs him by the collar and throws him across the room like a throw pillow, that becomes very obvious. Zed hits the wall, gets back up, and right at that moment, the synchronization bar hits 100%. Fiber optic internet has entered the chat. What happens next is the kind of thing that makes people check if the video is still on the right speed setting. Zed gets back up wrapped in this pale blue energy that was not there a second ago. He does the little hand flex. Does the foot warm up, slips into a full Miyame stance and tells 5089 casually to step into the ring. 5089 charges in, because he is a man of tradition. Zed takes a low kick at the leg, 5089 catches the foot, starts celebrating, and then Zed spins, full rotation in the air. Heel connects with the side of 5089's head like a Tekken input. Someone landed in real life. The boss staggers. Before he can recover, a second shot lands clean under the chin. The boss wants to fall, but Zed does not give him the option. One more kick, and the man who had never been put down in his prison hits the ground unconscious. Zed steps on the arm, looks at the rest of the Bald Gang, and explains very calmly that if anyone takes another step, their boss is going to need someone to cut his food for him for the rest of his life. The Bald Gang freezes. He stomps the arm again just to clarify that he was not speaking metaphorically. One of them runs to get the guards because at this point that is the only play left. The rest carry 5089 away, and just like that, Zed has established the prison hierarchy on day 8 without using a single drop of mana. Later in the cell, Ryu is losing their mind asking how he did that, also pointing out that Zed somehow looks taller than he did this morning. Zed tells them it is from carrying rocks, which is technically not a lie, but also not even close to the truth. The truth is that his real-world stats just merge with the in-game body. In literally every other story ever written, the protagonist wakes up in an overpowered body with perfect abilities and zero effort required. Zed woke up in a broke body and had to import his own stats from scratch like he is moving files between hard drives. He opens the status screen and takes stock. Strength, agility, stamina, perception, all 100, every single other stat maxed. And then there is mana, sitting at a clean, beautiful, humiliating 0. On top of that, the mage class penalty is cutting every other attribute by 50%, so he is taking a 50% stat penalty and getting absolutely nothing in return for it. That is not even a bad deal. That is robbery with paperwork. But the S-rank talents are sitting there like a list of cheat codes someone forgot to lock. Poison immunity, suppression resistance, immortal duelist, challenger, S-rank archmage blessing. If this man ever gets mana, the rest of this continent is in serious trouble. He lies back and starts doing math. The growth penalty runs on a 50-50 split, but that is still better than nothing. Physical stats he can train. Food is garbage but workable. The zero mana situation is the real problem, and he refuses to believe there is not a solution somewhere in this system. Then from outside the cell, numbers start getting called. Ryu explains that those are the death row inmates being called up for their last meal. They eat what they want, and then they are gone. Zed processes this information, asks Ryu their name, finds out it is Ryu, a boy, not a girl. Which means the person who has been sharing his bread and following him around this entire time is just a genuinely loyal, chaotic little street kid and nothing else. Zed introduces himself as Zed Arahan, decides on the spot that the name Arahan is too much syllable for everyday use, and from this point forward he is just Zed. He then asks Ryu how he plans to escape. Ryu explains that Clark carries the only key, and it is impossible to lift it off him because the man has the situational awareness of someone who has been paranoid his entire career. Zed smiles, because he just found the angle. The next morning, the guard announces that the workload is being doubled. The prisoners go ballistic, complain to the guard who just stares at Zed and coughs and says he will be back in a few minutes. Ryu immediately recognizes this for what it is. Clark cannot touch Zed directly without breaking the Knight's Code of Honor, so he is outsourcing the murder to 50 angry bald men and then taking a smoke break. Yu disappears, has some kind of plan, will not say what, just promises Zed is not dying today. The inmates close in. Every single one of them has decided that Zed being alive is the source of all their suffering, which is not entirely wrong, and Zed just smiles. Because the alternative to this situation is stacking rocks until he dies, and that is not a life he is interested in living. The first guy comes in and catches a knee under the chin. His entire body goes slack before he hits the ground. Everybody else freezes like they are waiting for someone else to go first. Zed looks at them and genuinely, sincerely, asks them to please all attack at once because one at a time is embarrassing everybody involved, and then it is on. Elbows, headbutts, punches, kicks, a full-on prison brawl that Zed is winning so comfortably he starts getting annoyed that no one is bringing real energy to this. He is complaining mid-fight that these guys lack aggression. The man is in a genuine mood because he loves it. He loves the danger. He loves the adrenaline. This is the same thing that made him a champion and then kept him playing a video game for 10 years after he ran out of real opponents. Having his life on the line is not a threat to Zed. It is the only place he feels alive. Then someone grabs Ryu as a hostage and tells Zed to stop or the kid dies. Zed smiles and says they just made a catastrophic mistake. Ryu is biting the guy's hand, full commitment, while Zed looks at the second circle knight holding him and just disappears. 1 second he is standing there, the next he is next to Ryu having a casual conversation with him, and the knight is looking around trying to figure out what happened like he walked into a magic show he did not sign up for. Zed then lands one perfect hit to the neck and the guy gets dragged across the floor by his own momentum. Clark shows up, sees the pile of unconscious bodies, gets told by Ryu that 2118 was the victim and this was self-defense. Clark looks at the pile of unconscious bodies again, somehow is still pissed about this. He asks Zed directly if he has been using mana. Zed says maybe. Then Clark activates his aura. Full night suppression ability of a retired 5-circle fighter. Every single prisoner on the ground gets back up just to collapse again from the pressure. Ryu drops straight to the floor. The guards start begging Clark to stop because the air is becoming genuinely unbreathable for everyone in the yard, and Zed is just standing there, hand on his hip, completely unbothered, like he wandered into a light breeze. It is the S-rank suppression resistance, a passive mental immunity ability so complete that Clark's entire career of intimidation is doing exactly nothing. Zed looks at Clark with the energy of a man who once stood across the ring from the best fighters on the planet and felt nothing. He says, very calmly, that he reached the absolute pinnacle of his world. 17 title defenses. He is not about to be rattled by a retired prison warden in a fantasy game. Clark is going insane trying to understand this. He pushes the aura harder. The guards are begging him to stop, and Zed just tilts his head slightly like he is trying to hear something faint in the distance. Clark finally cuts it off, stares at Zed, tells him to enjoy his last night in this world because the execution order has come down from the Emperor himself tomorrow morning, then walks away. Zed waits for him to leave, then calls after him that he has something he wants to say, says he is tired of the rock stacking, tired of inmates trying to murder him every third day. And that is why he has made a decision. He wants to join death row. Ryu has a small internal collapse. Clark turns around and asks if he understands what that means. Zed tells him to feel free to record it in a crystal ball. He is not changing his mind. Clark shrugs and says fine, bring the registration item. And right as this is being processed, Zed announces his last meal request. 1 verite steak, large enough to be completely full. The guard's faces go through 5 stages of emotion in 3 seconds because verite beef is so rare and expensive that it is literally only produced in the Southern Empire. It is a battle buff in food form. People eat it mid-fight just to swing the tide, and Zed wants the whole thing. Also, he will know if they try to fake it, so do not even try. Then he turns to Clark and adds that he almost forgot. His friend Ryu is also on death row now. Bring 2 portions. Clark stares, accepts. because the life of an Arahan is worth the cost, and he needs something from this kid anyway. Ryu, on the other hand, is completely unraveling, wanting to know why he has been enrolled in a death program he did not apply for. A week passes. The steak takes that long to source. Zed spends every single day of that week training because he knows exactly what the food is going to do for him, and he wants to maximize the absorption. Ryu just lies there asking what the point of working out is if they are about to die. He does not understand the plan. Nobody understands the plan. That is kind of the plan. When the steak finally arrives, Ryu takes one bite and immediately starts crying because it is the greatest thing he has ever tasted in his life. Zed reminds him that this is thanks to him. His stats start climbing. The penalty blocking his experience is partially lifting. His body is beginning to actually feel like somewhere worth living. Meanwhile, Clark walks into the room after the meal with a magic bracelet on his wrist and that familiar smile of someone who thinks they are about to win. He wants information on the Arahan family. Whatever knowledge this kid carries is worth serious money to the right people. He activates the bracelet, a magical torture tool designed to extract through pain. He puts it on Zed's shoulder, expecting screaming. Zed just stands there. Then Zed pats Clark's hand like he is a dog that tried something cute. Clark is spiraling. His torture device is not working. This should be impossible. The only way it fails is if the target's magical circle is higher than his. But this kid has no circles. So either there is some Arahan bloodline ability that cancels magical tools, or something else is happening that Clark's entire understanding of the world cannot account for. He pushes harder. The bracelet burns through mana at a rate that is unsustainable, and then the item just shuts off on its own, because it has nothing left to pull from. Zed asks if they are done with theatrics now. Clark straightens up, tells Zed to enjoy his last night, sets the execution for sunrise, then leaves the room, sits down at his desk, and starts trying to write a report about everything that happened, except the bracelet drained him completely. The pen slips. His head hits the desk. He is out cold before he finishes the first paragraph. A while later in the cell, Ryu wakes up. Zed immediately asks if they are finally up, tells them to stop complaining about the nausea, then praises them, because while Zed was busy being a human wall for Clark's entire suppression routine, Ryu quietly slipped the key ring off Clark's belt. In the middle of all of that pressure, while barely able to stand, just reached over and took it. Calm, clean, absolutely unhinged for a street kid. Zed checks his stats. Mana is still 0, but everything else dropped to -40, which means it actually went up relative to where it was before the steak. The food worked. His body feels more like his own than it has since he woke up here. He looks at Ryu and says they are leaving tonight. Ryu says Clark will notice the second he wakes up. Says Clark is asleep because the bracelet pulls so much mana that the crash afterward is immediate and total. He saw the item shut off. He knew what that meant. The man is not waking up for hours. Ryu has the key. Zed has the physics of the situation completely mapped. The hard part is already done. Zed walks to the cell bars and kicks them. They fall over, because a few bars of iron were never going to be the thing that stopped a man with 100 in strength even at 50% capacity. The first guards outside react immediately, demanding to know what he is doing. Zed tells them it is pretty obvious. He is escaping, and then the hallway becomes a dojo. Guards coming from every direction and Zed moving through them like water moving through a drain. He grabs one, uses him as a bowling ball to knock over 2 more, ducks a sword swing, lands a heel kick to the ribs, blocks the follow-up with one hand pressed to the ground, and answers with another kick that sends someone face first into the dirt. He is enjoying himself, visibly. That face, that absolute psycho grin while the guards are trying to figure out which direction this attack is even coming from. Ryu is running alongside him, watching all of this and quietly reconsidering every assumption he has ever made about this person. They make it to the gate. Guards are already lined up waiting. Zed looks at them, looks at the guy in the front row. That guy has nothing but regret in his future. Zed runs straight at them and the whole line just gets demolished like a bowling lane that forgot to put up bumpers. And then they are out. Clark wakes up sometime later to find every single one of his men on the floor and number 218 gone. He looks at his guys begging for forgiveness on the ground and immediately gives the order to hunt them down, but it is already too late. Zed and Ryu are in a village near the prison, standing in an alley wearing orange uniforms, looking exactly as suspicious as that sounds. Ryu knows the area though and takes the lead. First order of business is close. They raid a beggar's collection because it is either that or walk around in matching prison uniforms until someone arrests them again. Ryu goes to get food and tells Zed to wait there like a side character, which Zed does because he is choosing his battles. Ryu comes back an hour or two later with food, clothes, and contact lenses, blue ones, because in the southern region under Bahal family territory, blue eyes are fashionable due to the legacy of a hero from that clan who is basically a symbol for the whole area. Red eyes are the Arahan mark. People who see them tend to run, so the lenses stay in. They find a cabin in the forest and spend the night. And it is only now, lying on a stable floor, that the weight of everything lands on Zed. He woke up inside a video game. He is 15 years old in a body that is not his. He has no mana, no allies, no plan, and a street kid following him around calling him a side character. And somehow this man looks at all of that and the primary emotion he lands on is that at least life is interesting. Because 40 years of fighting everything the real world could throw at him and nothing was ever enough. And now he is here, somewhere completely unknown, with actual stakes, with actual danger. with a world that is not done throwing things at him yet. Next morning, they are up and Ryu is impressed that a noble can sleep in a barn without complaint. Zed asks Ryu the obvious question, what is the plan? And Ryu says something that Zed immediately respects more than any answer involving stealing. He says they make money the honest way. And by honest, he means the underground fighting arena. They walk in and the place is everything Zed hoped it would be. No rules, no referee doing anything useful. Someone is biting someone else's shoulder. A guy just got cannon punched in the mouth hard enough to rearrange his dental plan. The crowd is going absolutely feral. Yahello looks like he needs to sit down. Zed looks like he just found a church. Then the arena's current champion, a fighter who got brought in from the big city specifically because he is supposed to be untouchable, lands a combo on his opponent so brutal that the guy is not getting up on his own. The ref is just watching. The crowd is just watching. And Zed, who has been standing in the audience for 3 minutes, hops into the ring and grabs the champion's arm and tells him to ease up a little. The champion's name is Yujiro, arena legend, has a look on his face that says he cannot decide if this kid is suicidal or just stupid. Ryu is in the stands having a quiet breakdown. The crowd wants Yujiro to destroy the interrupting teenager. Yujiro himself is confused because he has seen a lot of people in this ring and none of them had a stance like that. That breathing, that stillness, that aura behind the eyes is someone who has been in situations where the wrong move means they do not go home. Yujiro charges in telling himself none of this makes sense. Takes a cannon punch to the cheek before he finishes the thought. The nose opens immediately, and Zed, standing there looking at him, just casually starts giving technique notes while simultaneously landing combinations. He explains that a punch should never start from behind the shoulder. You keep the arm forward, defense and offense at the same time. The arm is a shield and a weapon, and you never let go of either function. He is literally coaching this man while beating him. Yujiro's face is swelling up in real time. Ryu has his eyes shut and opens them one at a time like he is watching a horror movie he paid for but now regrets. And Yujiro, poor Yujiro, he is kneeling in the dirt, eyes blurry, cannot believe this is happening. Cannot believe he is losing to a kid in stolen beggar clothes in front of his whole crowd. He throws one last punch and Zed slips it like it was a slow motion replay and finishes him. Turns to the ref, tells him to call it. The ref looks at Yujiro on the ground, looks at Zed standing over him, looks at the crowd, and makes the only call available to a man who wants to continue having teeth. Zed wins. The crowd does not like this. The crowd paid money expecting the hometown champion to end a random beggar teenager, and instead they got a masterclass in why you should never assume the guy in the dirty borrowed clothes is the one in danger. Zed collects his winnings and immediately frowns at the bag. This is not enough. 60 people bet against him at the odds he was given. The math does not add up. He turns to Ryu with that specific silence that means someone is about to get interrogated. And Ryu's face does the thing faces do when a person has been caught doing the thing they said they would not do. He did not bet everything. He bet some of it and kept the rest. Before Zed can even begin to address this, someone walks up. Long blue hair, red dress, built like a declaration of war, lips that have clearly met a professional at some point in the recent past and walked away looking like that was a financial decision, not a beauty one. She moves like she owns the room because she does own the room because she owns the entire building and everyone inside it. This is Herna, arena owner, city power player, the woman everyone around here calls the Fox because she collects leverage the way other people collect furniture. She wants to have a little chat. Zed looks at her, says good to know, walks right past her. The two bodyguards who materialize in front of him are built like they were assembled from spare refrigerator parts. Zed looks up at them at approximately a 90-degree angle and asks if everybody wants to be on the ground today because he is genuinely asking. There is no judgment. He just wants to know the number so he can plan accordingly. The refrigerator men are confused. Herna steps in and explains that the fighter Zed just disassembled was a major investment brought in specifically from the big city. She wants him to understand the weight of what just happened here. She will let it go today, but they will meet again somewhere more comfortable. And she says she really does enjoy very strong boys with the energy of someone who collects dangerous things and is very pleased to have spotted a new one. Zed leaves because he is 40 years old inside and he has met 100 Hernas and none of them ended well for the people who did not recognize what they were dealing with immediately. Next morning at a bar, Ryu is having a full debrief about how insane that was. You just dismissed the most powerful woman in this city like she was a customer service complaint you did not have time for. She runs everything here, she has people everywhere. Zed nods and says she is just a money-hungry old fox. Ryu confirms that is literally her nickname around here, the Fox, and says she was definitely trying to get close to get something out of him. Zed thinks about this. Back in his real life, the moment he started winning fights consistently, the offers started rolling in. Managers, sponsors, promoters, all of them showing up with the same energy Herna just had. All of them wanting to attach themselves to something they could monetize. He got burned a few times before he found his actual manager. All of that taught him the single most important lesson in any negotiation. You have to know what the other person wants before they know you know it. He filed Herna under active threat and moved on. Their food arrives. Zed tells Ryu not to touch it. Ryu, who is starving, says whatever. Once food hits your stomach, it is all the same. Zed says they ordered a verite steak. This is not a verite steak. This is not a If it were actually verite, a restaurant that serves the general public could not afford to put it on the menu for everyone. This is a knockoff wearing the price tag of the real thing. Ryu says he does not care. Zed calls the waiter over. The waiter, who has clearly had a day, tells him that if he is going to complain, he should leave because nobody wants his presence here. Zed ignores this completely and says the steak is fake and they should bring the real one before saying anything else to him. The waiter decides this kid has genuinely lost his mind and offers to let him speak to the boss since he seems so determined to make this a whole thing. Inside the boss's office is a fat man sitting behind a desk surrounded by goons with knives pointed at the door, like they were ready for this specific situation. The boss asks if Zed is the one causing trouble. Zed says the ones causing trouble are the people running a fraud operation inside a restaurant. The boss sends the first goon in. This goes exactly as expected. The goons spend approximately 30 seconds discovering that the skinny teenager in cheap clothes hits like something that should be illegal. Arms get broken. Someone takes a shot to the neck. Another one gets thrown flat on his back. By the time the smoke clears, the entire room is horizontal and Zed is standing in the middle of it like he stopped in for a light stretch. Ryu, who has watched this happen 4 separate times now, informs the boss that this is the kid who knocked out Yujiro yesterday. The boss has heard this story, thought it was a rumor, is rapidly updating his worldview. Zed approaches and says he is actually a very reasonable person. Condition 1, they return the money paid. Condition 2, they cover the cost of the steak at actual verite prices. And that is it. That is the whole list. The boss agrees, because the alternative to agreeing is lying on the floor next to his goons, and Zed has already demonstrated the path that leads to. That night, Ryu is face down in the softest bed he has ever been near in his life, making sounds of genuine emotional relief. He says Zed is amazing, exactly what you would expect from a noble family. Says it is easy to negotiate when you have power. Ryu agrees enthusiastically, and another night falls. Except, in the middle of the night, Zed is lying there with his eyes closed, and Ryu gets up, quietly, carefully, checks if Zed is asleep, whispers his name once, nothing, then slips out the door. Zed was awake the whole time. He watched. Said nothing. Filed it away. A few days pass. Ryu comes in saying he is starving and wants to know when they are going to eat. Zed has been training since before Ryu woke up. Ryu cannot understand how a person does not take a single break. Zed checks his stats. Mana is still at 0. Not 0 minus something, just 0, flat, immovable. Going from nothing to 1 is like trying to light a fire with wet wood in the rain. It is taking longer than everything else combined. He suspects it is the nature of the transition itself, 0 to 1 being harder than any other increment, but it is still frustrating. He tables it. Tells Ryu they are going to get breakfast, and it has been 3 days since they visited the restaurant, because the last few times they went they ate 10 portions, and the staff ended up having to compensate them out of pocket, so he has been giving the place time to emotionally recover. Then he asks Ryu how many coins they have left. Almost none, Ryu says. This city is expensive. Zed looks at him. This is a game he played for 10 years. He knows the economy of this world better than most people who actually live in it. 50 gold coins, what they earn from the arena, does not disappear in a few days of normal living expenses, which means it is not going to normal living expenses. Ryu either has a problem Zed does not know about yet, or there is something being hidden deliberately. He does not push it. He has not seen betrayal yet, but he is watching. They go back to the restaurant, and the moment they walk in, something is wrong. The staff is smiling, genuinely, warmly, welcoming. The kind of welcome you get from people who are planning something and need you to not notice until it is too late. Zed looks around immediately. No visible threats. Same layout. Nothing out of place. Ryu wraps a piece of meat in lettuce and hands it over, tells him to take a bite. Zed grabs his wrist, holds it, looks at him, takes the smallest possible bite, and immediately knows. He tells Ryu to spit it out. Ryu spits it immediately because at this point, he trusts this man's instincts completely. Zed opens his status screen and there it is. Poison. Not enough to kill instantly, enough to accumulate. The absolute poison immunity in his trait list is what saved him. He would have been fine eating it, but Ryu would not have been, and if they had eaten enough over enough visits, even Zed's immunity would have eventually been overwhelmed. He tells Ryu it is because he is an Erhan, because he is not ready to explain the status screen situation. Ryu immediately gets annoyed because of course this noble is on a completely different level and is just going to act mysterious about it. Zed smiles and says it is time to make these people pay. He calls the boss in. The boss walks in confident because he watched them eat everything and the poison should be working by now. He is already picturing his life after this. Zed is sitting calmly at the back of the table like he ordered dessert and is waiting for it to arrive. He tells Ryu to offer the boss a piece of the meat as a peace offering. Ryu holds out the meat roll that has been sitting in his hand for roughly 40 minutes at this point. The boss looks at it. looks at Zed, and immediately realizes he does not want to eat that specific piece of meat for reasons he cannot explain out loud without incriminating himself. Zed says he finds it interesting that the boss is not hungry right now. He wonders if there is a reason he would not want to eat something that he himself served to his customers. He kicks the table. All the food hits the floor. He says he has been going easy on this man, but some people genuinely love suffering. The boss slaps the wall and says there is no poison, and if Zed can prove it, he will admit everything. Zed reaches up to his eye, removes the contact lens, and shows the red eye. The boss's legs stop working. Slides down the wall. He is on his knees before he even decides to kneel. He is begging, sobbing, asking how a member of the most terrifying mage family in the empire is wandering around pretending to be a street kid. He says he will do anything. Zed puts the lens back in, thinks about this for a second. The Arahan name just turned a man who was trying to poison him 30 minutes ago into something resembling a golden retriever who knows it did something wrong. He did not fully appreciate how much power that name carries until right now. He asks if the man will really do anything. The man says yes. Zed says condition 1, tell no one who he is. The man agrees instantly. Condition 2, hand over half of everything he has. And Zed will pretend none of this happened. The fat guy does not even negotiate. He just runs to go get the money before Zed changes his mind. Sprinting, literally sprinting to comply, and then the door opens. Erna walks in with her arms crossed, looks at the scene, and says they finally meet again properly. She says he is even more impressive than she imagined. Zed immediately reads the situation. She does not know he is an Arahan. The fat guy's frantic headshake confirms that, so she did not get that from here. Maybe she got information from the prison. If the fat guy finds out he is a discarded Arahan rather than an active family member, the deal falls apart. He needs to wrap this up fast and get her out of here before she figures out enough of the picture to cause real damage. He agrees to a private conversation. They sit. He asks why she has been looking for him. She tilts her head and says he has it backwards. She was not here for him. She had a meeting with a client. And she looks at Ryu. Ryu immediately starts apologizing. And then it all comes out. Ryu has been paying Herna, not gambling money, not wasted spending. He hired the most connected information broker in the city to track down someone who has been missing for a long time. Herna says she still has not been able to find the person. Ryu stands up angry, saying that is not what they agreed to and he has already paid a significant amount. Herna says finding someone who disappeared this long ago is genuinely difficult. They might be alive, they might not be. Zed processes this, looks at Ryu. This is a kid who knew the offer was bad, knew the chances were low, and did it anyway because there was no other option. Because when you are desperate enough, you grab whatever rope is in reach, even if it looks like it might snap. He has seen this before. He has been in rooms with people who had nothing left to lose and would take any deal that kept hope alive. He turns to Herna and says they will settle this differently. She wants to negotiate with him. Fine. She will negotiate with both of them. He helps her. She fulfills Ryu's request first. Herna smiles. Her request is simple. One more fight. Yujiro rematch. Ryu says it is a trap. Zed accepts before Ryu finishes the sentence. Walking back through the streets afterward, Ryu is holding the coin pouch and looking guilty. He apologizes. Says he did not mean to hide it. He just thought she was the best resource in the city and he did not know how to bring it up. Zed says it is fine and then says he knew from the beginning that Ryu was skimming money. Ryu is shocked. Zed says he only just figured out it was going to Herna. Ryu asks why he never said anything. Says because the help Ryu was providing was worth more than the coins. But from here forward, no more hiding things. He does not care where someone comes from. Being poor is not an excuse to act like garbage to the people on your side. Ryu starts crying. He swears he will never do it again, then begs Zed not to take the fight. Just take the money and disappear. Zed asks how he is supposed to find information about Ryu's missing person if they run. Ryu says Herna is going to rig it. He knows she is that kind of person. The type who takes desperate kids and uses them and drops them when they stop being useful. And Zed admits yeah, he wanted to run too. But he changed his mind, because that woman went all out preparing Yujiro with every cheat available specifically to make Zed lose. And that makes it perfect, because he does not get to go all out very often. And cleaning up trash that is actively in your way while also getting a proper fight out of it, that is just efficiency. Back at Kreen Prison, Clark is getting a status report. The troops are assembled. The hunt is organized. He slams the table and says the Arahan does not survive another day. 3 days later, arena, rematch. Yujiro comes out with his arms raised like he already won. Zed watches this with genuine bewilderment because this man got rearranged 6 days ago and came back with confidence. Ryu is in the corner one last time suggesting they run. Zed is not running. They face off and then Yujiro drops into a stance. Zed's stance. The man actually went home, studied what happened to him, figured out the mechanics of it, and showed up to the rematch with homework done. Zed is genuinely impressed. Not impressed enough to go easy, but impressed enough to respect that this guy listened to the technique notes he was giving him mid-beatdown and actually applied them. But then Yujiro charges in, and Zed notices something immediately. He hits him on the side of the head. Clean, solid, the kind of shot that should make someone's whole evening rearrange itself. And Yujiro just smiles. The Ogre Belt, an equipment item that negates 90% of physical damage. Herna went into the magical item market and equipped this man for a fight specifically against someone with 0 mana because the only counter to it is magic, and Zed does not have any. The crowd starts noticing Yujiro taking hits that should end him and keeps walking forward. Ryu is in the corner saying something is clearly wrong. Zed tells Ryu to watch and pay attention, then he drops his shoulders, changes his stance entirely. Yujiro sees it and gets 1 second to wonder what changed before a hit connects so hard on the side of his head that the ear turns purple immediately. Necrotic, in real time, with 90% damage reduction still active. Because here is the thing about Kim Jinho that the Ogre Belt did not account for. This man spent 40 years developing striking power that ended world-class fighters in seconds. He always held back. He had to, because within 1 minute of going full strength, every opponent he ever faced was unconscious and the fight was over before it started. There was never anyone who could take a full power hit and stay standing. Until right now, until this belt made a man who would normally be finished in one shot into something that could absorb what Zed is actually capable of. And Zed is having the time of his life. He is grinning, telling Yujiro not to collapse, hitting him again. The poor man cannot track the attacks anymore. He cannot tell where they are coming from. He tries to say he forfeits and takes one in the chin for the attempt. Zed is not accepting that word today, not nearly enough yet. And then Zed hits the belt itself. It shatters. The 90% reduction disappears. The equipment breaks apart. And Yujiro feels the difference instantly in a way that reaches all the way to his soul. He drops to his knees, and right at that moment, the contact lens cracks from the energy and the red eye shows underneath. Yujiro sees it, is about to say the name Arahan, and passes out. Zed feels something strange in his chest, opens the system window. Mana. 1. It went from 0 to 1. It is the smallest possible number. It is one single point. And Zed's reaction is the reaction of a man who has been sitting in a car that would not start for months and just heard the engine turn over. Because with an S-rank Archmage blessing attached to that mana, even 1 is something completely different from 0. Then he notices the arena is completely silent. Ryu runs over asking why he took the lenses out. Zed looks around and says, "Can everyone see the red eye?" Ryu says yes, obviously. And also it is somehow glowing more than usual, almost radiating from across the stands. The entire arena recognizes it at the same time, and they run, not walk, not back away carefully. They sprint, screaming that anyone seen by those eyes dies. The place empties in approximately 15 seconds. Not even Itachi's Mangakyo Sharingan created this kind of immediate evacuation energy. Whatever the Arahan family did to this part of the world, they did it thoroughly and they did it permanently. Zed grabs Ryu and they disappear too because the guards are coming, and having just emptied an arena with his eye color is not the kind of attention that helps anyone right now. Meanwhile, Herna is in the stands watching 2,000 gold coins evaporate in real time. The hiring fee for Yujiro, the Ogre Belt, the arrangement she made, all of it, on. She is tearing her hair out saying she should have just had the kid killed from the start when the prison warden suggested it, and instead she tried to be clever about it, and now she is broken, humiliated in her own arena. The boys are hiding in a barrel somewhere in the city while guards flood every exit. Ryu pokes his head out, confirms it is temporarily calm, says he will find a carriage and they can get out. But before he gets 3 steps, a guy with orange hair shows up and says Herna sent him. She has information Ryu needs. Also, there will be no other carriages leaving the city tonight. Ryu looks at Zed. Zed already knows it is a trap. Yu knows it is a trap. They both know, and they go anyway, because Zed says if they leave this problem running loose, it will follow them everywhere. Better to finish it here. They walk into the meeting. Herna is there with all her guards, and Clark is there, full armor, same mustache, same mission, all crook energy. He says if someone really did steal his key and escape the way they did, Herna is laughing at her own involvement in all of this until Clark says if Zed had stayed on her side, none of this would have happened. Zed says even if he could go back in time, his answer would not change. Clark draws his sword and announces that Zed Arahan is being executed right now and nobody should interfere. Zed tells Ryu to step back. Clark says it is almost touching that the boy thinks this is a fair fight. Zed says 50-50, either he wins or he loses. That is always the number he gives himself against stronger opponents. Not because he believes it mathematically, but because believing it is the only thing that keeps you from giving up before the first exchange. Against someone weaker, he uses the same number going the other way, staying sharp because that person also has a 50% chance. It is not probability, it is psychology, and it has kept him at the top of his world for 17 title defenses. Clark coats his blade in aura, his presence expands, he charges forward calling out Zed's name, and Zed just watches him come, thinking that this is exactly what he wanted, the chance to risk everything, the chance to lose. The challenger trait activates. All attributes plus 10. Temporary, burning bright. Clark's blade comes down and hits a purple explosion that craters the ground. When the smoke clears, the crater is there. Zed is not. Someone tells Clark to look up. Lightning, coming down from above. The boy is airborne and glowing golden. The reborn thunder transformation is active. The challenger's plus 10 pushed his mana high enough to use it. And now a man who is already terrifying in hand-to-hand combat is wrapped in an element that has no natural resistance, that not even the founding patriarch of the Arahan family was supposed to possess, and he is diving feet first directly at a 5-circle knight. Clark blocks the flying kick and gets pushed back hard. He is spitting trying to understand this. lightning attribute, on a discarded child from a line that was never supposed to have it. Herna and the guards are standing with their mouths open. Ryu has reached the stage of watching Zed do things where he is no longer surprised, just resigned. Clark stomps the ground and charges back in because what else is a man of his convictions going to do? He says he hates people who have everything handed to them by bloodline. Slashes towards Zed. Zed does the full Matrix lean backward like gravity as a suggestion. Clark sends a cross slash. Zed slips one, slips another, closes the distance. Clark commits to a headshot, certain the kid cannot dodge it. The sword hits a natural electric barrier that Zed has just sitting around his body now, and then a hit lands in Clark's ribs that goes through the electricity and into everything behind it. Clark goes airborne, hits a tree, coughs up what sounds like most of a lung. His men ask if he is okay and he tells them nobody interfere. A knight's honor will not allow that. He looks at Zed and says fine, he lost to an Arahan, just finish it. Zed asks if Clark wants to know why he lost. Clark says no, just kill him. Zed tells him anyway. The only reason is that Zed trained harder, put in more work, full stop. Clark immediately loses it because someone with a legendary bloodline is standing over him talking about effort as if he has any idea what it means to train your whole life with no natural talent and watch people born with everything still outrank you. He says Zed has no concept of what real effort looks like. Zed says he is sure Clark was stronger than Zed at the same age. And if Clark had kept training instead of calcifying around an inferiority complex, he should not have lost today. A knight does not blame someone else for their own defeat. That is the code. Clark goes quiet, thinks about what it means that a 15-year-old mage just reminded him of knightly honor, then tells him to end it already. The problem is killing a 5-circle knight makes Zed wanted by everyone with a badge in this empire, and he cannot let Clark walk around talking either. He is weighing options when the challenger talent deactivates and the lightning form cuts out. He raises his hand. Everyone screams. Herna tells the guards to attack now, and then the mist comes. From nowhere, covering everything. A strange energy that has no source and no warning. Zed cannot track it. He cannot feel where it is coming from even at 100 perception. He thinks maybe he needs to escape, but before he can move, the mist settles, and everyone in front of him is dead. The guards, the soldiers, Clark, Herna is gone. Nobody screamed, nobody reacted. Every single body is covered in thin-cut marks like something moved through the entire group faster than any of them could process. Zed did not do this. He did not have time to do this, and whatever did do it is not announcing itself. He turns and calls for Ryu. Ryu crawls out of a bush covered in grass and says he is fine. He asks if Zed did that. Says no. High-ranking mage nearby. They need to move immediately. Ryu spots a card on the ground, cleaned, pristine, placed deliberately. Zed picks it up, takes it to a campfire in the forest later, and puts a tiny drop of a single mana point into it. The card reacts. An emblem appears. A leaf symbol. The Black Mirror. The Arahan family shadow organization. The largest and most elite secret group in the empire, sworn to the family and operating in complete darkness. He flips it over. The number 4 is on the back. 4 means observation and protection. They have been watching him this entire time. They watched him get thrown in prison. They watched him escape. They watched every fight and every negotiation and every moment where he should have died. And somewhere along the way, someone in the Arahan hierarchy decided this throwaway kid is worth protecting. He thinks about the mana. He has 3 points now. 2 came from defeating Clark, same way experience works in a game. And he has unlocked the lightning form, which boosts physical stats and creates a proportional shield. But right now, he can only activate it when the challenger talent is running and pushing the numbers high enough. The moment that deactivates, the form cuts out too. Yuri asks where they are going. Zed says they are heading to Fa. That is the last location on record for the person Ryu has been searching for. But the road there is not direct. They are going through Tamia first, frontline village of the southern defense barrier. It has a teleportation portal, and that is the only realistic way to cover the distance they need. Yes, it costs more than most nobles can spend casually. Yes, they just looted Herna's entire operation fund. Yes, they can afford it. A magic circle opens in the dark, and a squad of soldiers materializes out of it. And at the front of them is a blonde knight with the energy of someone who takes his responsibilities very personally and has been given a mission he intends to complete without deviation. Torres Bahal. Here to the Southern Guardian family, the character Zed spent more time playing than any other in 10 years of Last Savior. The one who stayed with him until the final screen. Seeing him in person rather than through a monitor hits different than Zed expected. He tables the nostalgia. This is not the time. Torres announces he is there to hunt the Arahan who escaped from Kreen and is responsible for the deaths of guards and civilians. He has taken an oath to bring justice. The army behind him is not symbolic. The minimum requirement to be in that group is 5 Circle Knight. There are more than 50 of them. Ryu is shaking. He tells Zed to run. If they are separated, there is a chance Ryu survives. Zed will definitely be killed. Zed tells him to stop shaking if he is going to say something that important. And then he walks out of the bushes, steps into the open, announces that he is Zed Arahan. Ryu has a quiet spiritual crisis in the bushes. Zed is doing this because once the soldiers realize the camp is still warm, the search begins and there is no way out. Stepping forward and trying to negotiate is insane, but it is less insane than being found hiding in a bush next to a dead fire. As he goes to speak, a sword moves toward his neck. He has no time. He goes to activate the lightning at his feet, and then something blocks the attack. Not him, something else. Between the blade and his neck, completely invisible, a voice tells the knight to stand down. The knight backs off instantly, and then cloaked figures materialize around the entire army, an entire squad. The Black Mirror was not watching from a distance. They had been standing right next to him this whole time, and he could not feel a single one of them at 100 perception. He does not know whether to be impressed or unsettled, and settles on both simultaneously. Torres arrives, sees the situation, recognizes the organization. His jaw tightens because this is the legendary shadow group of the Arahan family showing up in his jurisdiction. He throws his sword into the sky and tells them they will pay today with their heads. The Black Mirror captain says that is not happening, and a massive red formation circle appears under every soldier Torres brought. Anyone steps out of it, it detonates. Torres is standing in the middle of an extremely expensive trap that was set up before he arrived, which means whoever is running this operation predicted this encounter in advance and is a 7th circle mage at minimum. Torres demands to know if the Arahan family wants a full-scale war with Bahal. The captain says not even Lord Bahal himself wants this conflict. Torres responds by activating the lion's roar anyway, the secret technique of the Bahal line. 6th circle power output minimum. Even Zed, standing there, has to shield his face from the pressure wave. Zed already knows the math. Torres is not ready to complete this technique. He has the power for it, but not the control. If he pushes through, the backlash will destroy him from the inside before he hurts anyone else. Zed turns to the Black Mirror captain and tells him to deactivate the formation before this gets everyone killed. The captain says their orders are to protect Zed Arahan, not to take orders from Zed Arahan. There is technically a difference. Zed then turns and yells at Torres to stop. Torres tells him to shut up. He does not take orders from the enemy he came here to arrest, and then Torres fires the lion's roar anyway. The Black Mirror blocks it with a barrier. The sword shockwave alone from the block hits Torres, and he drops to both knees coughing blood. The technique's backlash hits immediately after, and he collapses. The soldiers rush over screaming that their lord is dying. Zed walks over and says it is a mana backlash. Nobody here can heal it because the healer needs to be stronger than the patient. There is exactly one person present who qualifies. He turns to the Black Mirror captain, tells him to heal Torres. The captain says absolutely not. Zed pulls Torres' sword and puts it to his own throat, says if Torres dies, he dies, which means the mission to protect Zed Arahan fails. The captain can explain that to the family. Complete silence. Then the captain steps forward and heals Torres. The soldiers sob with relief. Torres breathes. Color comes back to his face. The tension in the clearing drops from lethal to merely terrible, and the Black Mirror vanishes. All of them, at once, leaving behind a single white card on the ground. Zed picks it up near the village of Tamiya later and channels a drop of mana into it. Number 9. Abandoned. Survival status. They are on their own now. Whatever protection he had, the family has recalled it. The next part of this journey, he handles without a safety net. He looks at the card, looks at the tree line. And somewhere behind his 15-year-old eyes, a 40-year-old champion adjusts to the new situation and keeps moving. Ryu asks how he even knows about the Black Mirror if it is supposed to be a secret organization. Zed turns and asks the same question back, and Ryu looks at him like he just asked what color the sky is. Bro, everyone knows about the Black Mirror. Little kids know. Street dogs probably know. It is the worst kept secret in the Empire. They are the most feared shadow organization in history, and their cover is essentially just a vibe. Zed cannot believe this. A secret organization with universal name recognition. That is like the Yaya having a TikTok account with verified status. Ryu warns him that since they are definitely still being watched, they need to be careful at every moment. Zed says actually no, and here is why. Knights follow honor, mages follow profit. Both of those things are extreme and irrational, but they are also completely predictable. You want to handle a knight, attack their sense of honor. You want to handle a mage, offer them something worth more than what they currently have. Both sides are basically NPCs with fixed behavior trees, and Zed has spent 10 years learning exactly how they operate. Then a knight shows up and says Torres wants to speak with him. Inside the tent, Torres opens with tea. Zed is not particularly interested in tea. Torres drops the small talk and asks what actually happened with the murders and the prison guards and all the allegations against him. Zed says he is not too formal, so let us just talk like normal people. Torres asks how old he is. Zed says in this body he is 15. In this body. He just told a knight heir that he is 15 in this particular body, like he has tried out several, like he is reviewing a rental. Torres does not know what to do with that information and decides to file it under suspicious and move forward. You in the background is taking notes on this conversation with the energy of someone watching their favorite show premiere in real time. Torres says regardless of how he feels about it, he has to thank Zed because Zed saved his life. And because he is a knight, that means something. His code does not allow him to harm someone who pulled him back from the edge. Zed watches this happen and internally thinks, yeah, this is exactly how Torres worked in the game. He knows this character better than Torres knows himself. After all, Zed spent 10 years playing him. Torres says enough small talk. He wants to know the truth about the accusations. Zed lays out the entire story. The prison, the riot trap, Clark's behavior, the self-defense, all of it. Torres listens, then says if what Zed says is true, everything checks out as justifiable. But how does he know it is true? Zed says simply, if he were lying, he would have let Torres die. That was the easier exit. Torres sits with that for exactly 3 seconds and then goes, you know what? That is a solid argument. I accept it. Just like that. Done. This man spent maybe 45 seconds on an investigation that should have taken weeks and concluded it based on pure logical integrity. Zed respects this deeply. Torres is built different. Torres puts a bag on the table as an apology gift, powdered mana supplements. Zed looks at it and says if he's trying to apologize, he is going about it completely wrong. What Zed actually wants is help finding Ryu's missing sibling. Torres stares at him, says that makes no sense for a mage. There is no benefit in that for him. Zed says he does not care about benefit. He made a promise to his friend. Torres has nothing to say to this. He has never met a mage who operated like this. Next morning, Zed is already doing push-ups at sunrise every single morning, no days off. Yayu is sitting nearby, confused about why someone who could have asked for literally anything from Torres asked for help finding a missing person instead. Meanwhile, Torres is standing off to the side watching Zed train and quietly having a character arc. He is thinking about this. A mage with no mana who trains his body like a knight, who talks about effort and promises like a man who actually means them, who fights without magic and wins and then asks for nothing except help for someone else. He thinks about what it would take to maintain your dignity in a situation that bad, whether he himself could do it. And right there, standing next to a fence watching a teenager do push-ups, Torres Bahal makes a decision. This person is going to be his friend. He does not know how yet, he just knows. Finally, some human connection in this story. The bromance arc begins. Torres goes and gets a massive feast of high-quality beef prepared and invites everyone to sit. Ryu is suspicious, but Zed tells him to eat and say thank you. The knights all sit down looking deeply uncomfortable about sharing a table with a mage. Then one of them stands up, says this makes him uncomfortable. He is leaving. Then the second one stands up. Then the third. In about 15 seconds, the table goes from full to 3 people. Torres apologizes. Zed says do not punish them. You cannot expect someone who grew up being told mages are the enemy to suddenly sit down and share a meal like it is normal. That would take time they have not had. Torres says maybe he was wrong to even invite them. Zed says forget that. What did you actually want to say? Because clearly there is a reason for all of this beyond just beef. Torres explains. They're leaving soon, but he wants to delay one day. He wants to use that day to show everyone that Zed is a decent and honorable person. One day should be enough. Zed agrees. So the next morning they are out on the southern front line near the wall of Idamia doing active monster patrol. Creatures are getting sliced in half, knights are celebrating, Torres is getting orders, and Zed is right there in the middle of it trying to figure out why he got dragged along. He figures it out quickly. Torres' plan is to make him part of the mission so the knights see him working alongside them. It is a 17-year-old's idea of how to change public opinion, and it is honestly not wrong. As they sweep through, they find something. A massive crater in the ground. Torres asks what made it. The knight next to him says it looks like an uncatalogued creature. Protocol says fall back and report. Torres says it is not even danger zone 1, so whatever it is should be low level. Someone else says even low level is dangerous when you do not know what you are dealing with. Torres is considering pulling back. Zed says he knows what it is. Everyone turns. A mage who has been in this world for a few weeks claiming to know a creature nobody else has seen. The knights immediately say they cannot trust a mage. Zed replies that the Erhan family's monster documentation is significantly more comprehensive than theirs, which lands exactly as well as you would expect. The knights look like they want to physically vibrate with irritation. Zed tells them they are the ones being disrespectful. You do not talk to an Arahan heir like that regardless of how you feel about mages. Torres cuts the tension before it becomes a whole thing, and then the creature appears. 2 of them, not 1. 2 basilisks. Mid-level serpent-type monsters, each one the size of something that should not exist outside of a nightmare. Torres immediately calls formation. Everyone scrambles. The aura slashes from the knights start flying and they do absolutely nothing. The creatures are just walking through it. Torres is confused because the attacks are landing and the things are not reacting. The basilisk lifts a tail covered in poisonous spikes and Zed yells for everyone to get down. Nobody moves. Torres yells for everyone to follow the order. The knights finally drop. And knights fight except for one guy who announces loudly that he does not take orders from a mage and stays standing. Zed yells again, too late. The spike volley fires. Everyone on the ground is fine. The one guy standing catches a spike because that is what standing gets you when you ignore the person who knows what the monster is about to do next. Zed saves him. Obviously, had to be the mage kid. This man refuses an order from Zed and then gets rescued by Zed within 30 seconds. The universe has a very particular sense of justice. Zed warns everyone that the next attack aims low so that trick will not work again. Then he tells Torres to split up. Torres takes the knights and handles the one on the left. Zed handles the one on the right, alone. Torres is not completely sure about this, but Zed just says yes or no. Torres says fine. One on the left, you take the right, do not die. Zed smiles and says he is counting on him. The challenger trait activates, plus 10 to all stats. Mana ticks up just enough to light up the lightning form. Zed turns to face his serpent and tells it to look over here. The creature roars. Zed is genuinely excited. He bounces between tree trunks like a pinball, comes down from above, and drives a strike directly into the crown of the serpent's head. The weak point, not the scales, not the body, the top of the head. The thing spasms, twists, and collapses. Dead. The whole fight took maybe 90 seconds. Zed reaches into the creature's mouth and pulls out the demon's breath, a red crystalline ingredient, rare, valuable, and in his specific situation, worth more than almost anything else he could find because it is a key component for crafting an elixir. Normal elixirs give random stat boosts. His stats are all already maxed, so for him, an elixir is a guaranteed mana increase. 100% conversion rate. He pockets it, powers down the lightning form, and heads over to help the other group. Torres is in rough shape by the time Zed gets there, separated from his knights, taking hits. Still holding on through sheer stubborn knightly pride, but the situation is not great. Then lightning hits the other basilisk from above directly in the head. Torres looks up. There is Zed, all electrified, little energy orbs floating around him like he is walking in his own weather system, asking if Torres is doing okay. The knights come running. They see the lightning. They recognize it immediately. That is Kalua's electricity. That is the thunder attribute. The one nobody in this continent is supposed to have. The one that does not even appear in the Arhan family's historical record. Torres asks if Zed is actually using lightning energy, and Zed says obviously. Torres asks how he has mana when he was literally documented as having 0. Zed says he acquired some recently. Torres says that is impossible because mana is formed at birth. Babies come into this world with the framework already in place. The channels might take time to connect, but the foundation is always there. Having 0 mana at birth and then developing it at 15 is like being born with 9 fingers and then one day looking down and counting 10. It is a solid comparison. Everyone stands there quietly processing the fact that this kid is apparently a walking biological impossibility. Zed asks if he can keep the ingredient. Torres says yes. You killed it, you keep it. Our boy is absolutely delighted. 2 demons' breaths from a single patrol mission. He has been playing this game for 10 years and never once had that kind of drop rate. The universe is finally paying him back. Later at camp, the knights are all talking about Zed. They cannot stop. He has no mana but use lightning. He fought a mid-level creature physically instead of using spells from a distance. He told everyone to get down before the spike attack like he already knew what was coming, and then he saved the guy who refused to listen to him without even bringing it up afterward. The conversations in the camp have completely shifted, and none of them sound like the conversations they were having yesterday. A little while later at a bar, the knight who caught the spike walks up to Zed, bows his head, thanks him, says he is not hurt because of him. Zed just says it is fine, and asks if he is okay. Yu is watching this exchange with the face of a person witnessing something they did not think was possible. Then Torres comes over and says Zed genuinely managed to change the group's opinion. One day was all it took. Then Torres says unfortunately he has to head back to the family. The head of Bahal is going to be furious when he finds out everything that happened, and Torres needs to be there to manage that. Zed asks if he is not afraid of getting chewed out for getting close to an Arahan. Torres says he has been expecting that conversation for a while, probably inevitable regardless. Besides, he is going to pass through Find on the way back, and while he is there, he will look for Ryu's sibling. Having a Bahal hair searching gives us a completely different weight in terms of what resources get used. Ryu tears up. Thanks them both. He cannot believe this is happening. Next day, Finda, Southern Trade Port. And Ryu finally gives the full picture. The person he has been looking for this whole time. Her name is Lisa, 13 years old, long blonde hair to the waist, small, adorable, and missing somewhere in this world with 0 protection. Right, a 13-year-old girl wandering around a fantasy empire where slave trading is a documented industry. Nothing concerning about that at all. Everything fine, no panic necessary. Zed says the first move is checking slave trading records. Every house that deals in this kind of business, they start at the trading firm Ryu used to work for. Zed puts on the fancy suit because he is not walking into a slave market looking like a beggar. He is walking and looking like someone these people cannot afford to disrespect. The guy at the door bows before Zed even introduces himself. Zed asks if this is the Hamill trading firm. The guy says he is mistaken, this is a slave market. Then apparently determines that Zed is not actually noble based on the fact that a real noble would refer to the merchandise differently and tells him to leave. Zed says he is a noble. The guy throws a punch. 10 seconds later, the guy is on the floor getting slapped while Zed calmly asks his questions. The original Hamill firm went bankrupt. These people took over, and the biggest player in the entire southern slave trade is a man named DeVito. Zed files the name, then asks where the people in this building are. The guy uses the word products. Zed slaps him again, tells him to repeat that. He slaps him again, tells him that that people are not products and even garbage people should try to meet a minimum standard of basic decency. Then tells him to get every coin from this place and the keys to every cell. The guy complies, and a minute later he is the one behind the bars, sitting in the exact situation he was running, while Zed frees everyone who is locked up and distributes all the money among them so they can actually restart their lives. He also sits and talks with them, because information is everywhere if you are willing to listen to people others ignore. A white-haired old man named Gordon introduces himself, says he used to work for the Shivan family, the most legendary magical blacksmith clan in the Empire's history, famous for weapons and equipment that could not be replicated, but they were accused of treason against the Empire and wiped out every last one of them, no survivors allowed. No techniques preserved. And now with the number of magical beasts increasing every year, the Empire is paying the price for destroying the only people who could have armed them properly. Zed says it really is a tragic loss. Gordon says as thanks, he's going to share something, a secret, one that has to stay secret, outside, away from ears. He leans in and tells Zed that the true heir of the Shivan family, a man named Lacto, is still alive. His assistant died in his place. Lacto disfigured his own face and disappeared. If the plan worked, he is somewhere in Myers right now. Zed hears this and immediately does math. A legendary blacksmith who is a fugitive and who can craft magical equipment at a level nobody else in the Empire can match. And he needs equipment. Specifically, he needs gear built for his exact body and fighting style because everything on the market is made for normal mages who fight at a distance, and he is the opposite of that. This old man just handed him something worth more than any amount of gold. He thanks Gordon genuinely. Gordon says he only shared it because Zed seems like a good person. Just please do not let anything happen to the man. Back at the table, Ryo is eating but looking sad. Zed tells him not to lose heart over one location. There are bigger operations to search, Divido specifically. Gordon immediately looks up when he hears that name and tells Zed to be very careful. Divido is not in the same category as the place they just shut down. His network runs through the entire empire. And one of the rumors, the ones that circulate quietly, is that his biggest client is the Arahan family. Zed, currently wearing blue contact lenses, quietly processes being told that his own supposed family is funding the largest slave operation in the South. He already suspected the Black Mirror was involved in things like this. Training people in darkness requires sourcing people from somewhere. He deflects, says it seems unlikely the Arahans would come all the way south for something like this. Gordon says the prices are unbeatable down here, and monopolizing the best slaves in the South also starves the powerful southern families of resources. Which is exactly the kind of chess move the Arahan family would make, because of course it is. Zed sits back. If the Black Mirror is protecting Divido, going after him without revealing his identity could spark a covert war between Arahan and Bahal. He looks at Ryu, who is clearly feeling guilty that his request is creating this kind of complication. Zed tells him not to worry. This stopped being just about his sister a while ago. He was going to clean out every slave operation in this area eventually anyway. This just gave him a reason to start here. Next morning, Divido's market, which does not look like a market. It looks like an imperial mansion that went into the wrong business and decided to commit. Zed walks in without announcing himself. The security inside is startled because you do not just walk into Divido's operation without an appointment and a death wish. One of them tells him he needs to understand where he is. Zed reaches up and removes the lens, the red eye. Every single person in the building drops to their knees, except for one hooded figure in the background who gives a slight bow. Low-ranked Black Mirror. Confirmed. The family's fingerprints are on this place. Then from the second floor, slow footsteps. A man with a mustache, glass in hand, walking down the stairs with the energy of someone who has met powerful people before and is not particularly worried about one more. This is Divido. He says what an interesting guest. Heard about the slave market that got destroyed yesterday. Thinks the kid is either bold or naive. Probably both. Zed gets straight to it. As of today, the deal between the Arahan family and Divido is over. He is taking all the slaves in this building. Divido can cooperate or not. His choice. Divido laughs, not a nervous laugh. A genuine, entertained, this kid has absolutely no idea laugh. He says he is not going to kill a guest. But the lesson Zed is about to learn today he will carry for the rest of his life. His men start closing in. Zed clocks the hooded Black Mirror member, counts the other threats, starts planning who goes down first, and then someone outside yells to surround the building. Torres! With his entire squad, storming in from every entrance simultaneously. Swords are already moving. A head rolls past Divido, who is now on the ground not because he chose to be, but because the floor became the safest available surface. Torres announces that by imperial decree, all slave traders are to be arrested for illegal abduction and crimes against Bahal's honor. Then he looks at Divido directly and says he is going to cut off limbs as an example. Torres does not threaten, he informs. Divido begs immediately. First the arms go, then the other arm. He is still talking. Legs next. He is not talking anymore. Then the head. Torres wipes the sword and moves on. Zed is standing there watching this with the internal commentary of a man who has seen violence his whole life, still slightly taken aback by the efficiency of it. Torres explains the Emperor issued a full decree. Every slave trader in the Empire is being hit simultaneously. He came to this one personally because it is the largest. Then he turns to Zed and asks what he is doing here. Was he actually planning to take Divido down by himself? Zed says yes. Taurus tells him to wake up. He is probably not even at Circle 1 yet. He needs to keep pushing harder. Then goes back to managing the operation. 600 slaves come walking out. Yu is scanning every face. Taurus tells his soldiers that if they find a blonde girl, bring her forward. Ryu spots a blonde figure and sprints toward it, calling Lisa's name. It is a 70-year-old woman. The search continues. 500 people pass and nothing. The cells come back empty. The last report comes in. Nobody left. Yu is standing there in silence, and it is the worst kind of silence. The kind where someone has been hoping so hard for so long that the absence of the thing they hope for lands like a physical hit, and then a horse rears up behind them. Someone falls off backwards. Blonde hair. Taurus walks over saying, "Be careful," and it is a girl. Teenage, blonde hair to the waist. Zed is staring because nobody who came out of that building matched this description, and he is trying to figure out where she was this entire time. She looks sideways and asks if that is her brother. Ryu sees her face and loses it completely. He runs, he grabs her, he is crying with his whole face. Every emotion this kid has been carrying this entire journey is coming out right now in this one moment. Cross-eyed, ugly, crying, absolutely losing his composure in the best possible way. She had a hood on the entire time. Nobody checked who had a hood up. Not Zed, not the Knights. Not a single person in this very experienced military unit checked whether the person with the hood up might be the exact person they were looking for. Amateur hour from everyone involved. Zed looks at Taurus, who is very clearly also crying, and asks if he is crying. Taurus says no, he is absolutely crying. Then says he is not crying. He keeps saying he is not crying while crying. Later, feast. Everyone around a table. Meat everywhere. Cups raised. Lisa looks at the spread like she cannot believe food exists in this quantity. Ryu tells her to eat without being scared. Taurus shows up and formally introduces himself to Lisa and tells her she can feel comfortable because Ryu is his friend. Zed watches this little scene and has a quiet internal moment of genuine weirdness because he just accidentally ended up with what feels like a 15-year-old younger brother and a 13-year-old younger sister, neither of whom asked for his involvement, and both of whom he already knows are going to need saving approximately twice a week going forward. But everyone is smiling. The food is good. The atmosphere is warm. Zed thinks this might be the first time in either of his lifetimes that a table felt like this. The first time something that simple ever landed on him. He does not get to finish the thought. The door opens. A man walks in. Philip, Bahal's vice commander. The same guy who spent the entire carriage ride to Fernando's mansion trying to give Zed instructions on how to kneel. He announces there is an urgent message from the clan lord. Taurus asks what it is. Philip draws his sword and points it at Zed's throat. Zed thinks, of course it had to happen on the exact day everything was actually good. Philip says the clan lord has ordered Zed to be brought in immediately. That night in the carriage, Philip starts running through the rules. Do not make eye contact with the family heads. Kneel before all of them. Zed cuts him off somewhere around Rule 2 and tells Philip to watch his mouth. Who exactly does this man think he is talking to? Philip says this is Bahal land, and if Zed does not show respect, the only thing arriving at Fernando's mansion will be his head. Zed says the one who needs to show respect is Philip. He is from the Arahan family. So bring it on. Philip is fuming. The carriage keeps moving. Zed is running calculations the entire ride. Fernando, the head of Bahal, 10th Circle Knight, Swordmaster Realm. In the game, this man was reasonable but not soft, smart enough to read people in real time and act accordingly. The danger with Fernando is not that he is violent. The danger is that he is correct, almost always, and when he decides something about you, it tends to stick. The meeting has to go a specific way. Not too submissive or Fernando loses respect for him immediately. Not too aggressive or Fernando loses patience and the head Philip keeps threatening becomes a realistic possibility. The balance is everything. They arrive at the Bahal mansion. Zed notes immediately that they are being brought to the 5th floor reception hall, not the 7th floor office. In the game, he memorized this. 5th floor means guest, not prisoner, not target, guest. That is good. That is meaningfully good. And then he realizes Fernando is already in the room. He did not hear him enter. He did not sense his approach. He turned around and the man was simply there, standing behind him as if he materialized from the architecture. Zed, with 100 in perception, felt nothing, zero warning. A swordmaster's presence does not register the way other people do. It is not that they move quietly, it is that the space they occupy just changes and your brain catches up 3 seconds later. Fernando walks past and sits in the chair across the room and just stares. The pressure coming off him is not magic. It is not an ability. It is just what happens when you are in the same room as a human being who has achieved something that most people in this world only theorize about. Zed is working very hard to keep his legs from doing something embarrassing. He stays standing. He does not kneel. because kneeling right now tells Fernando everything wrong about what kind of person Zed is, and Fernando will write him off before the first sentence is finished. Instead, Zed thanks him for the invitation. Fernando asks what invitation. Zed says the carriage that brought him here and the reception room indicate he was received as a guest. If Bahal etiquette requires guests to kneel, he is happy to follow that, but he is treating this as hospitality unless told otherwise. Fernando stares at him. The buff knight next to Fernando, Jiriam, starts laughing and says this bastard has nerve. Fernando tells Zed to sit down. He does not like watching guests stand. Tea arrives. Zed is a guest. The meeting has not killed him yet. Everything is going well. Fernando says Zed is overthinking it. He brought him here out of curiosity and nothing else. He heard Zed went after Divido before the imperial decree came down. He wants to know why. Zed thinks about what answer would land best and then decides against all of them and just tells the truth. Slavery is wrong. He acted on conscience. That is all there is to it. He cannot lie in front of a swordmaster. There is no point trying. Fernando asks if he knew Divido was connected to the Arahan family. Zed says he suspected it was a rumor. Found out it was true when he got inside. Fernando says it is strange that he found that out and still did not stop. Zed says what is right and wrong is not a family matter. It is just what it is. Fernando says the Arahans will not let this go. Zed says it does not matter. Fernando looks at this 15-year-old in front of him and thinks quietly to himself that the kid must understand exactly what it means to go against his own family, and he went ahead and did it anyway. First mage Torres has ever called honorable. Fernando can see why now. He invites Zed to stay the night. Zed declines politely. Gives the knight salute as he turns to leave. A salute that knights use, not mages. Fernando goes quiet, then says he has never been saluted by a mage. Today was genuinely a special day. Zed ends up staying because Fernando somehow asked in a way that was not really asking. That night in the guest room, Zed is finally relaxing, thinks about food, notices a tray on the table, looks at the meat. There is a letter sitting on top of it. Clean, white. From the black mirror, he picks it up and puts mana into it. Number 0. 0 means return. Stop. Come back. The patriarch is calling him home. Zed stares at the ceiling for a while. He does not sleep. Morning. Torres comes to find him. Yuyu and Lisa are safe. The family head has apparently already decided to respect the guest relationship and pull back the search orders. That is the good news. The bad news is the Black Mirror recall letter and the fact that the Arahan Patriarch is not the kind of man who forgets someone is late. After breakfast, Torres takes Zed to the training grounds and then over to the stables. He starts explaining how Bahal's white horses work. They choose their own riders. They are partners, not property. There is one in a stall that has rejected every single person who has approached it for 2 years. The 3-month standard time limit has been broken. No master, no bond, just a very particular horse with very particular standards that nobody in this entire prestigious knight clan has been able to meet. Zed looks at the horse. The horse looks at Zed. Zed reaches out to scratch under its chin. Philip appears from nowhere. Demands to know what Arahan trash is doing here. Torres says guest of the family head, show some respect. Philip bows with maximum visible resentment, then looks at Zed and says with the energy of someone who has been planning this since last night, hey, want to do some light training with the crew? Just for fun, friendly sparring. Torres immediately says no. Philip keeps pushing. Torres says Zed is not ready. Philip says it will be light. Come on, just a quick session. Torres, stop being protective. It is just training. Zed looks at this situation for 2 seconds and says fine, but he wants it on record that they are the ones who asked for this. The first knight walks out with a wooden sword and announces since Zed is a mage, he probably does not know how to fight, so they will keep it simple. Zed stretches, says you are going to regret that. You should go all out. The knight mutters that this kid is out of his mind. Philip is watching from the side. He clocks the lightning energy Zed is generating and thinks it looks impressive for mana that has not even cleared the second circle. The output is more intense than normal, but the quantity is too low to matter. The outcome here is obvious. He is completely sure of this. The knight charges. Vertical slash. He is already thinking about where to go for lunch after this quick warm-up. Then there is a sharp crack. The sword hits the ground. The knight is somehow standing 3 feet to the side of where he was, confused, and then takes a kick to the ribs that launches him sideways. He is trying to figure out if he is a mage or a fighter or something he does not have a category for while Zed steps through a combination, slips 3 counter slashes like they are suggestions rather than attacks, and drives a punch into the stomach, followed immediately by one directly into the face, teeth on the ground. The knight is unconscious. The horse is watching from its stall. This is the first time Zed has consciously thought about trying to impress a horse, and he has no idea why he is fine with that. Fernando shows up from behind Zed so silently that Zed's perception at 100 catches nothing until the man speaks. He orders everyone to lower their swords. Philip and the whole group drop to their knees immediately. Fernando tells them all that this is why training cannot be taken lightly. Experience matters more than rank. Combat knowledge matters more than feeling powerful. Remember this lesson. Then he looks at Zed and thanks him for the demonstration. It is a thank you that is also clearly a warning, and Zed files both meanings simultaneously. Then the white horse explodes out of its stall. Not gently, not slowly. It comes out spinning, running circles around the yard, displaying its speed and power and agility in a sequence that Torres immediately recognizes. This is the ritual. The horse is showing its abilities to the person it has chosen, asking for acknowledgement in return. The horse's chosen master is present, and it stops directly in front of Zed. Steve is having a medical event. Fernando steps forward and asks Zed Arahan if he acknowledges Pearl as his companion for the rest of his life. Zed processes this question. Pearl. That is a girl's name. This is happening very fast. He looks at the horse who is staring into his soul with the intensity of someone who already decided and is waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Fernando's presence behind him is doing that thing again, where it communicates volumes without words, and all of it says accept this right now. Zed asks the horse quietly if it is really sure. The horse nudges him. He accepts. Philip immediately loses it. A Bahal white horse cannot go to an Arahan. This is a violation of everything. Has Fernando forgotten what the Arahan family did to their horses in the past? They treated them like livestock. They killed them. You cannot hand one of these animals to someone from that line. Fernando says Zed has already given his word and will care for her. Philip says mages lie. Fernando says that if Zed mistreats Pearl in any way, he will personally go there and kill the boy himself. Zed thinks, wait, what? He did not sign up for that clause. Nobody mentioned that part. He is standing there having just accidentally agreed to a lifetime companion horse under penalty of death by a swordmaster if he does not treat her well and genuinely does not know how this happened so fast. Philip eventually backs down because Fernando ends the conversation by making it clear that continued protest has consequences. Steve swallows it, understands, is still furious somewhere underneath. Zed rides Pearl out through a small forest and takes a breath, then goes to find Ryu and Lisa and tells them to come inside. He has a lot to explain. He tells them everything. The letter, the family calling him home, Fernando, Pearl, all of it. And then he drops the part he has been sitting on. He is going to the Arahan family. He cannot avoid it anymore. Ryu says immediately that he is going too. Zed says he does not have to. Ryu says Zed told him abandoning a companion is never an option and he was paying attention. He wants to go as a butler. Bring Lisa too because she can handle herself. If they are hired as servants, they stay close and can help when things go wrong. Zed knows the danger ahead is real and he wanted to keep these two out of it. But he looks at him. He thinks about everything they went through together to get to this moment and says, fine, we go to Arahan together. 90% of the problems that happen in there will be caused by these two. He knows this. He accepts it anyway. That night, he maps out the preparation he still needs. The demon's breath is already in his pocket. He needs holy water to turn it into an elixir. He needs lacto to craft him equipment. Both of those things point to one city. Myers. He has 14 days from when the recall message arrived. He is not going to waste any of them. Morning, the trio sets out, Zed on Pearl, Ryu and Lisa on foot behind him. Ryu very quickly asks why he needs 500 gold coins. Zed says it might not even be enough. The elixir requires divine quality holy water, not the basic stuff they sell at every corner church. The better the holy water, the higher the success rate. Good quality costs 10 gold per bottle. He could buy 50 and still be rolling dice. That is why he's going specifically to Myers. There is a priest there he trusts. And while Zed goes to find the holy water, Ryu needs to start asking around about a one-eyed white-haired old man. Do not use the name Lacto. Do not ask too specifically. Just gather information about people who match that description and figure out from what people say where the one who did not show up for the silver coin is hiding. Yu says that sounds easy. Zed says, unfortunately, it is not. A fugitive does not come out for a few coins. The search is about elimination. Find all the white-haired, one-eyed men who are comfortable being seen. The one they want is the one who is not. They reach Myers. Zed heads toward the church where the priest he knows should be, and finds a line out the door, a crowd. People from everywhere packing the entrance. Zed stops and stares because this does not make any sense. He asks someone nearby what is happening. The man says they are selling holy water at half price. Everyone rushed in to buy it. Half price, Zed goes still. Holy water requires divine power to make. 1 bottle per day per priest. That is the limit. The amount it takes out of you is not something you can shortcut, so either this priest has somehow developed the ability to produce in quantities that should be physically impossible, or the priest at that counter is not the actual priest. He files in, waits his turn, gets to the front. The man behind the counter greets him warmly. Zed looks at him, asks casually how things are going, Father Johann. The man smiles and asks how many bottles he wants, and that is when Zed knows for certain. Because the real Johann say, the 49th priest of the empire does not answer to his first name that casually from a stranger. The real one would have asked who he was first. Zed closes the door behind him, looks at the imposter and says it must be exhausting pretending all day. The imposter behind the counter stares at Zed, pulls out a knife, and with the energy of a man who has been running this scam for weeks and has absolutely no intention of stopping, tells him that if he is not here to buy something, he needs to leave because there are paying customers waiting. The crowd outside is already yelling at Zed to move. Rich kid blocking the line. Spoiled brat. Some of us are actually sick out here. Zed tells the man calmly that scamming people inside a cathedral is going to end badly for him and that he is calling the Imperial Army right now. The imposter leans forward and says, go ahead, call them. He does not care. Get out. And Zed notices something. The way he said it. Zero hesitation. No flinch. A man running a fraud operation in a church does not respond to a threat of Imperial Army involvement with that kind of confidence unless the Imperial Army is already aware of what is happening in this building, or more specifically, is already participating. He leaves, goes back to the lodging, sits down and thinks, the city authorities are dirty, which means going to report this through normal channels is the equivalent of calling the people who set the fire to report the fire. He's going to have to deal with this differently. He heads to the Imperial garrison. The soldiers at the gate see Pearl, recognize a Bahal white horse immediately, and snap to attention. Says he needs to speak with the general. Has something important to report? The soldier asks if he has an appointment. Zed says no. Soldier says unfortunately you need an appointment. Come back later. Zed asks if the general is busy right now. Soldier says no, but the general only speaks to people with scheduled time. Zed explains that urgent reports override appointment policies. That is literally how Imperial law works. The soldier looks extremely uncomfortable and says sorry, just doing the job. And then from behind Zed, the general arrives. General Pullman. This man is built like someone who used to be a soldier a long time ago and has since made peace with a different lifestyle. He looks at Zed, looks at Pearl, immediately decides this 15-year-old kid stole a Bahal horse and asks who he is and what he thinks he is doing. Zed says he got the horse as a gift, which the general immediately says is impossible because nobody gifts a Bahal white horse, and also Zed does not look like a rider, and also something is clearly off here, and also he is lying. Zed tries to explain that he just needs to report something urgent. There is a fake priest selling fraudulent holy water at the cathedral, and the city authorities are likely involved. The general cuts him off mid-sentence and orders him arrested. Zed is surrounded before he finishes the thought. And as they close in, he says out loud that okay, so the general is working with them, just like he thought. The general tells him he is going to regret everything he said today. Zed lets himself be taken while saying the one who is going to regret this is the fat one. He is smiling the whole way to the cell. Meanwhile, back at the Bahal mansion, Fernando is in a meeting about Imperial rewards. The slave rescue operation produced big numbers. 3,720 Imperial citizens recovered by Bahal and its allies. 2,580 attributed to Arhan involvement. Numbers published, compared publicly. Bahal clearly ahead. The Emperor basically took a formal diplomatic shot at the Arhan family by releasing these figures and letting everyone do the math. Fernando finds this mildly entertaining. He tells tourists to get ready to go collect the blessed items they are owed as prizes. Then a man walks in and says a young boy from outside the territory is requesting an audience. Claims to be a friend of Taurus Arhan. Taurus asks if the name is Ryu. Confirmed. Taurus is confused about what brought him all the way here. Fernando stares at Taurus for exactly 1 second and then tells them to bring the boy in immediately. Because Fernando just read a letter from the Emperor praising Zed Arhan specifically, and now someone connected to that same Zed Arhan has shown up at his front door. Fernando wants to hear what this kid has to say. Ryu gets brought in and is essentially gravitationally pulled toward the floor by the weight of Fernando's presence. He is nearly horizontal with the bowing. He explains that it is not a big deal. It is just a letter Zed left with him and asked him to deliver it if he did not come back by nightfall. He hands it over. Fernando takes it, reads it. The letter covers everything. The fake priest, the holy water scam, the cathedral situation, the suspected involvement of city authorities. And at the bottom, Zed's instruction that if he had not returned by nightfall, Ryu should bring this letter directly to the head of the Bahal family. Fernando looks at this letter, looks at this instruction written by a 15-year-old who somehow anticipated that he might get arrested, prepared a contingency plan in advance, identified the one person in the region with enough authority to move on it, and trusted a street kid to execute the delivery. Fernando says the boy, meaning Ryu, showed courage bringing this here even while scared. That is an honorable action. He orders food brought and tells them to put Ryu somewhere comfortable. Ryu hears the word honorable come from Fernando's mouth directed at him specifically and completely loses the structural integrity of his face. He is eating the best food he has had in either direction from this moment and crying simultaneously. Nights really do hit different with 2 words than anyone else manages with a paragraph. Back in the garrison cell, Big Rat, Bigger Roach, Zed doing push-ups for 2 hours. The guard watching him is more tired than Zed looks. He cannot understand what is happening. This is a torture facility, and the prisoner is in there voluntarily improving his cardiovascular fitness. General Pullman shows up holding a cloth over his nose because the place smells like what it is. He looks at the kid doing push-ups and is genuinely confused. They force Zed to his knees. Pullman says depending on how he answers one question, he goes free or gets tortured. The question is why the white horse will not obey him. Did Zed put a spell on it? Zed tells him he is an idiot. Bahal white horses choose their own masters. Nobody can force that. The general says it is impossible that a horse would choose a mage. Zed says he will find out soon enough. The general is furious and removes his armor. He is going to do this himself. There is nobody who has lasted 30 minutes under his personal attention. He picks up a knife and tells Zed this is his last chance. Zed tells him to go to hell. The general swings in for the stab, and then a guard bursts through the door saying, "Sir, there is an urgent message. Bahal sent a letter." The general throws the knife at the wall in frustration, grabs the letter, reads it, and his face does several things in rapid succession. The person you arrested is the master of that white horse and a friend of the Bahal family. There are reports of corruption in your city. An investigation is incoming. He rips the letter apart, screams that it is a lie, then looks at Zed and says, "This was your plan. You knew this letter was coming. You were just waiting for it to arrive." And then he decides, even if Bahal is involved, all he has to do is kill the kid and the fake priest. No witnesses, no evidence, no problem. He advances. Zed says some people only learn by getting hit, shifts into the lightning form, and snaps the ropes. The general is looking at a free electrified teenager and has approximately 0 seconds to process this before Black Mirror mages materialize from the walls of this imperial prison like the architecture itself decided to have opinions. One of them steps forward and says the family orders him to return immediately. They are there to escort him right now. Zed looks at these people who just appeared inside a secured imperial military facility without triggering a single alarm and asks if they sent a recall order. The mage says it does not matter. He goes now. Zed says if he walks into the Arahan family in his current state, he will die. He needs preparation time. Send a message to the patriarch. Tell him he needs a short window to prepare to survive the family itself. If the answer is still come immediately, he will go without complaint. The mage vanishes, comes back. The patriarch gives him 14 days, not 15, not 16, 14. And after that, there is not a single extra hour. 14 days. This man who wiped out all his brothers and runs the most feared family in the empire just communicated through his shadow organization from wherever he is sitting and gave his discarded youngest son a 14-day window. Zed knows what that means. This is not generosity. This is a countdown on a bomb. The mage adds 2 more things. First, an investigator is coming and he should handle that person carefully. Second, the patriarch has ordered Zed to stop hiding his Arahan identity, remove the contacts, let everyone see the red eye. Zed asks why the family that threw him in a prison and told history to forget his name now wants everyone to know he is Arahan. The mage says the message has been delivered and fades back into the shadows. 2 hours later, an imperial investigator named Cox shows up looking thoroughly impressed. He tells Zed that the young man did excellent work exposing corruption in the Imperial Army. That is genuinely promising. What family is he from? Zed removes the contact lenses. Red eye. Hello. He introduces himself as Zed Arahan, Semen's son. Cox stops, stares, says it is a coincidence. The Arahan mentioned in the Imperial documents was him. Zed asks what documents. Cox pulls out a folded letter, official Imperial seal, written by the Emperor, praising Zed Arahan by name for his efforts assisting Imperial citizens regardless of status, recommending all nobles take this as an example of exemplary behavior. Zed reads his own name in an Emperor's handwriting and has absolutely no idea how this happened. Cox says apparently someone close to the Emperor spoke very well of him. Zed immediately thinks of Gordon, the old freed slave who said he would repay the favor. He did not expect the favor to come back as a personal note from the top of the Imperial hierarchy, but here they are. Cox says he can see Zed wants to see the cathedral situation through to the end personally. He is fine with that. Go ahead. Finish what you started. Zed thanks him. Cox starts laughing and says he is being thanked by an Arahan and he must genuinely be getting too old because that is not something that happens. Then Cox hands him something, an investigator's insignia. Show this anywhere in the Empire and Imperial forces are required to assist. The only condition is that it only gets used for the Empire. The moment it is used for personal gain, he has repaid Cox's trust with betrayal. Zed holds both emblems in his hands that night. The priest's mark from Johann, the investigator's insignia from Cox. He did not come to Myers for either of these things and walked away with the 2 most powerful pieces of social armor he could possibly carry into an Arahan family reunion. The priest's mark makes him functionally unarrestable without the church's involvement. The investigator's insignia gives him command authority over Imperial forces on demand. Together, anyone who wants to kill him now has to be willing to fight the church, the Empire, and whatever Zed himself brings. Going into a house full of sibling assassins with those 2 things on his chest is genuinely different from going in without them. He makes the elixirs that same night, opens the first vial of Jilhan's premium divine holy water. The stuff glows, pours it onto the demon's breath, waits. The ingredients merge and the elixir materializes. He chugs it. Mana goes from 3 to 4. Opens the second vial. Same process. Mana goes from 4 to 5. Electric humanization unlocks. He sits up, feels the difference in his body immediately. The ability drastically boosts physical capabilities and generates a shield proportional to mana level. The thing he has been working toward this entire journey, the skill that makes his lightning form sustainable rather than a desperate gamble, is now in his hands. Then he collapses backward onto the bed, not from physical exhaustion, from relief. He was genuinely afraid the skill threshold was going to be 10 mana, not 5. If it had been 10, he was looking at weeks more preparation he did not have, but it is 5, and he has 5, and it is done. He lies there staring at the ceiling. A 40-year-old world champion inside a 15-year-old body in a fantasy game world, now holding a priest's seal, an imperial badge, and a power that has not appeared in this continent's history in living memory, about to walk into the most dangerous family on the continent with a street kid, a 13-year-old girl, and a legendary fugitive blacksmith as his team. He thinks quietly that this is actually more fun than the game ever was. Next morning, Ryu delivers his intelligence report. There are 40 white-haired, one-eyed men in Myers. He contacted all of them with a silver coin offer. 34 showed up. That leaves 6 who did not. Lacto is somewhere among those 6. He has the locations mapped. The protagonist thanks him and says genuinely that he did not expect that level of precision. Ryu says it is basic work, barely anything. He can do much harder. Zed tells him to stop flexing and sits him down. He tells Ryu and Lisa that they are the first actual friends he has made since arriving in this world, and he is going to take responsibility for them until the end. No conditions, just a fact. Ryu starts crying. Lisa looks between them. It is a whole moment. Then a girl walks up and asks if the red-eyed kid is Zed Arahan. She is practically vibrating with excitement, saying she heard he cleared out the spies and protected the cathedral, and everyone in the city is talking about it. And then Zed looks up and realizes the crowd around them has doubled and everyone is looking at him the same way, and someone shouts, "Thank you for protecting the cathedral." And now it is a whole public scene with people pressing in from every direction, wanting to say something or touch Pearl or just exist near him. And in the middle of this crowd, Zed catches a face. One eye, white hair, old, disguised, standing in the crowd watching him with the calculated patience of a man who has been running and hiding for years and evaluates every situation before committing to anything. Lacto, right there. Zed tells him to stop and shoves through the crowd, but the crowd is working against him because everyone wants a piece, and by the time he breaks through to open space, the old man is gone. Ryu gives him the nearest location from the list. They run, break into a building. Wrong old man, skinny, scared, confused. Zed tells him to move and goes out the window. Next building, wrong again, next, wrong. The chase becomes increasingly chaotic as Zed tears through addresses looking for the one that is right and finding everyone who is not. Then Ryu says the only place left on the route is a basement in a half-abandoned building nearby. Zed gets to the door and immediately feels something wrong. A blacksmith who is a fugitive should not be radiating intent to kill from behind a closed door. He tells Ryu to go upstairs. He activates the electrification and starts channeling it into the door. Then blue light explodes through the entire structure. The mortal gambler activates. The immortal duelist trait, the one that makes it literally impossible to be killed in a single instant, absorbs the hit. Zed is standing in the ruins of the building, surrounded by dying blue flames that should have cooked him down to the molecular level, and is completely fine. He looks at what the trap was made of. Azure flame. A high attribute fire that is barely achievable through dedicated mage study. Somebody crafted that level of destructive power into a door trap. That is not a regular person. That is someone with techniques that do not exist in this market. Zed is now even more motivated to find this man than he was before getting nearly vaporized by his front door. Ryu shows up from upstairs asking if he is okay, and then immediately follows up with the question of how they are going to explain this explosion to whoever is about to show up and ask about it. Back at the inn, Ryu is spiraling. They need to leave before the Empire's people arrive. Should they ask Bahal for help? Zed says he is specifically trying not to involve Bahal again because the Black Mirror shadows react badly every time he interacts with that family. Then a banner goes up outside and someone is ordering Zed Arahan to come out immediately. He tells Ryu to stay. Steps outside. The soldiers have arrest orders in hand. The commander gives the signal, and then he sees the priest's mark on Zed's chest and everything stops. The commander's entire demeanor changes in real time. He starts apologizing, says he only just arrived in the city and is still learning how things work. He asks what happened at the explosion site, just procedure, no pressure, does not have to answer. Zed explains it calmly. He was there looking for someone, there was a trap already set up inside, he was as surprised as anyone. The commander says that makes sense. Zed notices immediately that the mark on his chest has essentially converted this man from arresting officer to customer service representative in under a minute. He thinks about how useful this could be for finding Lacto. Then the commander says he cannot abuse the mark's authority to use public resources for personal matters. Zed pulls out the investigator's insignia. The commander looks at it, looks at Zed, looks at the fact that this teenager is holding both of the two most powerful pieces of official documentation in the Empire simultaneously, and just wants to know how that is possible. Zed says it is not just personal anyway. There is a perpetrator responsible for the explosion. That is a public matter. The commander agrees, salutes. The full unit is now at Zed's disposal. He asks them to commission an artist to make a sketch of the suspect. The next morning, a wanted poster goes up all over the city. 500 gold coins for information on a man named Zula. The reward is enormous. Enormous enough that citizens are saying this person must be a genuine monster, and the face on the poster does not look anything like Lacto. It is completely wrong, deliberately wrong. Lacto, still in disguise, is standing in the crowd reading the poster. He is studying it. He understands that the face is wrong on purpose, that the only reason to post a wrong face with a massive reward is if the person posting it wants to signal something without saying it directly. He wants to meet. This Arahant kid set up a public meeting disguised as a manhunt. Lacto thinks about this. He thinks about how many cities he has been through, how exhausted running is, how there is nothing left to regret. He goes to the reward claim point. Zed appears behind him and says his disguise is incredible, then tells him quietly, act natural. Any signal of recognition, and this ends badly for both of them right here. The old man asks who he is. Zed introduces himself. Zed Arahan, 7th son. He pulls back his hood, says he has been looking for him for a while, and it is nice to finally make contact. He tells the old man he knows his name. He is Lacto Siobhan, isn't he? Lacto removes his disguise mask, asks why an Arahan is looking for him. Zed says the reason is obvious. He wants to hire the greatest living blacksmith as the Arahan family's exclusive craftsman. Lacto stares at him. Zed does not let the silence sit too long. He says war horses are made for war. Swords are meant to be used. The last surviving member of the greatest blacksmith bloodline in the Empire's history has exactly one thing he was born to do. The techniques passed down through his family across generations are not just his inheritance, they are history that belongs to the future, and letting them disappear because of a political setup is a waste that the world cannot afford. Zed says he wants to give him a mission, pass the craft forward, continue the line, keep the Siobhan name alive. The old man's face does not move, but he says that filling him with emotion is something that sounds appealing. The problem is the Siobhan family name, the accusation, the conviction. Zed cuts him off and says it is a false accusation and with Arahan backing he can clear it. Lacto stops, asks if Zed knows the full story of what happened. Zed admits he does not. He knows the rough outline from conversations, but not the details. Lacto says it is strange to offer help for something he does not fully understand. How does he know the accusation is false if he does not know the facts? Zed thinks about this honestly, then says he does not need the facts to know the Siobhan family had no reason to rebel. They were craftsmen. The Emperor at that time had already reached both the Swordmaster realm and the Archmage level simultaneously. He was immortal and absolute. If even the combined forces of Arahan and Bahal could not challenge him, what exactly was a blacksmith family planning to do with an army? It makes no logical sense. There's only one explanation that fits. They were set up, Lacto says okay, and then tells the story. The Marchus family, second ranked among mages, were their primary trading partner. Marchus wanted to surpass Arahan. That was always their goal. Then, the Bilby family got involved. Mediocre mages who somehow managed to insert themselves between Marchus and Siobhan with a simple message, stop trading with Marchus, trade exclusively with us. Lacto refused. The Bilby representative said he would regret it. After that, Bilby and Marchus conspired together to create enough conflict to justify imperial intervention, and the imperial army showed up at the Siobhan family home with no warning, no explanation, and no survivors permitted. Zed listens to this, processes it. The Arahans were not heavily involved in Siobhan trade, which means they probably did not pull this trigger. But the Black Mirror is everywhere, and the political landscape of that era is complicated. He tells himself not to jump to conclusions without more data. What he knows for certain is that if it is only the mage families involved, the Arahan name is enough to pressure a resolution. He looks at Lacto and says, if you want, take my hand. He guarantees it will work out. The old man looks at this kid, thinks about having nothing left to lose, extends his hand. Done. Zed thanks him. They are leaving now. He looks at what he has assembled. A white Bahal horse, a priest's mark, an imperial badge, the last Siobhan blacksmith. 3 blonde people with no useful combat abilities. He is smiling. They arrive at Naga, the golden city of the eastern region. And golden is not a description, it is a material. The buildings are literally gold-faced. Not painted, not decorated, structurally gold on the outside. Lisa grabs Ryu's arm the second they enter and starts pointing at things like a kid who just walked into Disney World, except the rides are also made of money. Ryu, who spent his whole life as a small-time trader, says he genuinely did not believe a place like this was real. Even Lacto, who visited once about 10 years ago, says this city has changed beyond recognition. Zed looks around and thinks it feels like a wealthy neighborhood in Seoul dropped into a fantasy continent and decided to stay. Everyone is staring at Pearl. White Bahal horses do not come to Nika. This is attracting the wrong kind of attention. Zed gets everyone settled at an inn and then tells them he is going out alone. The old man who thought he was recruited to make weapons is now being left in charge of 2 kids at an inn like the world's most qualified babysitter. Ryu asks if Zed is coming back today. Zed says probably not for about a week, then walks out while Ryu is still mid-sentence. Out in the Golden City, Zed heads to a small shop in a part of the city that does not match the architecture of the rest. He buys the cheapest possible contact lenses, black, the color of nobody in particular. Then he goes to a clothing shop. The owner rushes out to offer the premium selection. Zed points at the pile of ragged worker clothes in the corner. The owner explains those are not for sale. Zed puts them on and places his actual clothes on the counter as payment. Deal made. He checks his reflection in the side of a gold building because this city has enough exterior gold that it functions as a mirror, and he looks like he is about to ask for change outside a train station. Perfect. He heads for the dark part of the city. Every wealthy place has one. The part where the people who came looking for opportunity and ran out of it ended up. He sits in an alley in the exact spot dogs use for their personal business and waits for the moment to move. 7 people start following him within 5 minutes. The gang has spotted the newcomer in borrowed rags and marked him as a target. Zed is genuinely hungry because he left without eating, and he is looking at rats running around the alley, thinking about the protein content of small rodents. A massive guy steps out of the shadows and blocks the path, tells him he better identify himself as a newcomer or he is not surviving the night. Zed asks if there is any food around because he needs about 3 rats minimum to fill his stomach. The gang takes immediate personal offense to this. He came into their territory to eat their rats. One of them charges from behind. Zed glances back, drops his shoulder, and the man flies into another man like a physics demonstration. He switches a motion midway through an elbow strike and converts it into a chop to the neck. 3 people are on the ground before anyone else processes what happened. The remaining members of the group stare. Zed says he is here to take over the whole operation eventually anyway, so they should know that going in. They do not know what to do with this information, and then a dagger flies out of the dark trailing green energy and misses Zed's face by about 2 centimeters. Somebody in the shadow smiles and says, "Oh, you dodged. You are not ordinary, are you, kid?" The rest of the gang parts, and a guy steps forward who clearly has a different energy from the rest of these people. Not just in terms of confidence, in terms of the actual green aura bleeding off his body like he is leaking power from the inside. The big bearded man in the back whispers that Zed does not know who this is. This is Kim Zira, legendary assassin, responsible for wiping out the entire city of Nikar by himself. Zed looks at the legendary assassin who is also the commander of a rat-eating beggar organization in a back alley and thinks about how career trajectories can really go anywhere. Kimza goes to stab him and Zed steps aside. Kimza is impressed. He says the kid dodged twice, has potential. Too bad he will not live long enough to use it. Zed thinks it is genuinely funny that this man is talking to him about potential. A world champion, 17 title defenses, a man who ran out of people to beat on an entire planet, being told he has potential by an alley boss. Then Kimza expands his aura and the green energy takes over the entire space. Zed clocks it immediately. Mana expansion, circle 4 or above. That is not a fake legendary assassin. That is the real thing. Anyone in this world who can push mana to that degree and control it, that precisely qualifies as a genuine threat regardless of where they live or what they eat. Kimza tells him to stop looking surprised and find out what happens when you walk around careless in this world. He does that Kue style step where experienced fighters circle without telegraphing and starts watching Zed for a reaction. Zed keeps his face completely neutral. Kimza decides to test him, comes from above with the blade aimed directly at the center of his skull. Zed looks up and does the acting scared face for exactly half a second. Then 3 blades collide at once from 3 different angles. The gang is staring because that is not one person. That is 3 people with the exact same face who all just attack simultaneously. The legendary assassin Kimza is actually triplets. 3 brothers, identical, each one carrying their own mana signature, advertising to the world that they mastered a triple clone technique that presumably took many years of painful synchronized training to develop. And honestly, from a marketing standpoint, it works. 3 men with 1 name and 1 reputation is genuinely unsettling. Zed now has a very specific problem. 3 identical 4th circle assassins, all look the same, all move the same. His perception stat at 100 is doing nothing useful here because they are not clones, they are actual separate people, and when all 3 mana signatures feel similar and all 3 bodies look identical, the information becomes noise. He cannot tell do, ja, and ra apart by any available method. They come in again. Zed says alright, it means it. The challenger trait activates, plus 10 to everything, and then the electrification lights up and the red eye starts glowing and everyone in the vicinity immediately goes, oh no, an Arahan. What is an Arahan doing here? They realize they have not been hunting prey. They have been circling something that was humoring them while it waited to get hungry. The gang starts running. Zed clenches his fist and a whip of lightning crosses the chest of the nearest one. Then he is moving, cape flowing, hair up, built like something that should not exist in an alley behind a gold building. He is walking forward with pure aura forming around him, and for the first time, he is actually starting to understand what thunder feels like as a weapon rather than just a stat. It activates without enchantment, no casting time, no circle, no preparation. It is just there the moment he reaches for it, and in a world where every other mage has to spend seconds building a spell, that is a gap that can decide any fight before it starts. Then a soldier shouts from somewhere nearby that someone is here. Zed immediately stops and runs, not from the soldier, toward the Kimza body on the ground because whoever just got hit by lightning at full strength is going to need immediate attention, and explaining a dead legendary assassin to the local garrison while wearing the investigator's badge would create a whole administrative situation he does not have time for. He rounds a corner. The soldiers sweep through the alley, lighting it up, and find blood on the ground. They spot Zed in the open and ask who he is and what is going on here. He looks at them. They see the red eye. Instant posture change. One of them asks if he is Master Tunda by any chance. Tunda is the 6th son of the Arahan family. Zed says no, he is the 7th. You do not know him. The soldier apologizes and they leave at a speed that suggests they would rather be anywhere else than near this particular red-eyed teenager. Zed goes back to Kimza. At least one of the triplets is still breathing. He drags the man through the alley until he hears voices. Two identical faces peer out from a doorway. Daggers already surrendered, hands extended, crying and apologizing and begging him not to kill their brother. Full breakdown. These two men who just spent the last several minutes trying to end a 15-year-old's life are now completely decomposed with grief over their sibling. Zed stares at them, thinks about this. These are people who kill for a living, who run an underworld organization, who attacked him twice without asking any questions first, and they are standing here absolutely wrecked over the possibility that their brother might not make it. He finds this confusing in a way that he decides is actually meaningful. He asks them about it, says it is strange to see people with no hesitation about taking lives show this much love for family. They say they only kill bad people, never innocents. Their master always taught them that. Zed says, yeah, right, you just tried to kill me. They say that is different. He looked like an invader coming in to take their territory and they had to act. He considers this. There probably are a lot of people coming to the Golden City's underworld looking to take it over. The Kimzeras defending their ground against an unknown threat is not the same as taking contracts on innocents. He does not entirely believe them, but he does not entirely disbelieve them either. He tells them one condition. Take him to their leader and he will use his holy water to heal the injured triplet. They get scared. They explain that selling out their leader means they do not survive what comes after. He steps closer. Says he has no intention of hurting the leader, just a meeting. The one on the right says everyone who ever said that to them ended up being a problem for the leader anyway. Zed says then here is the offer. Tie him up, put a knife to his throat, blindfold him, take him there without him knowing the route. If they still do not trust him after all that, the injured triplet goes home without the holy water. He is extending trust without requiring them to extend it first. They look at each other, agree. They blindfold him. He notices immediately that they are walking in circles. He says out loud that if they are trying to find the Black Mirror Guard, give it up. They are not going to spot them, and walking loops through the same alleys is not a strategy. The Mohawk one asks if the guard is nearby. Zed says genuinely no idea. Those people exist somewhere between this dimension and another one. Just take him there already. They enter a room. The blindfold comes off. The room is full of books and tea. The leader they have been protecting all this time with walking loops and throat knife positioning is a skinny guy with glasses who looks like he should be filing paperwork somewhere and hates that he is in this situation. The leader asks who Zed is told by the triplets that this person insisted on a meeting. The leader tells them to get him out immediately. Then Zed pulls something from his pocket and says to give it to the injured triplet first. It is holy water. The leader stares because the person who just got walked and blindfolded with a knife to his throat is spending his rare divine liquid on the guy who tried to kill him 30 minutes ago. The leader looks at the red eye, puts it together. He says, how did an Arahan end up here and who let this happen? And he trusted these people. The triplets explain the promise. Snatches the book out of Zed's other hand, says every noble is trash, then looks at Zed more carefully, says you are young, you are not Tunda, which means you are the youngest, the one who got abandoned at the asylum. This is Eddie, king of the Nika underworld, information broker, shadow operator. A man who challenged the Imperial Officer Placement exam so many times that the system essentially has his name memorized and keeps rejecting him because he does not have the money or the family name to be considered, regardless of how far above the passing mark he scores. The rejection calcified into something. He decided if the system will not let him in, he will build something parallel to it. And down here in the Rat Eater alleys, he is the smartest person in any room he enters, and everyone knows it. Zed already knows all of this because Eddie exists in the game as a secret quest character who most players never find. He also knows that Eddie is exactly the kind of mind that, given the right platform, could make everyone currently sitting in those noble towers very uncomfortable. Eddie says he does not want anything from the Arahan family. Whatever deal Zed is about to propose involves money or status elevation or some variation of what every noble thinks a commoner wants. He already knows. Boring. Zed just stares at him. Eddie turns away like he already won the conversation. Zed sits down next to him, says the payment is not money, it is information. He will give Eddie something he does not know in exchange for something he needs. Eddie perks up just slightly. He says that is interesting. Ask what Eddie wants to know. Zed says he wants information about his brothers, their alliances, spending habits, personal connections, servants. Eddie says, and what does Zed know that he does not? Says information you do not have. Eddie says he will not know until he hears it. Zed says he will share when Eddie shares. Eddie says, what if his information is useless? Zed says, what if Eddie's information about the brothers is useless? Because technically when it comes to Arahan family knowledge, Zed knows more than Eddie does. He came to see if Eddie knew more. Maybe he does not. Then Zed stands up and says, well, looks like you are not interested, and walks out. Eddie is sitting in his room thinking about this. He knows Zed will reach out to the triplets later. He has leverage through them now. He can afford to wait. But something about the framing is bothering him because it was too clean. Most people trying to get something from him do not leave voluntarily. They push. Zed leaving immediately means he's either completely confident about the outcome or he has another way in. Both of those things are worse for Eddie than a person who stayed and pushed. Outside, the triplets catch up to Zed and thank him. The holy water worked. Their brother is recovering. They are ashamed they doubted a noble. Zed says it is fine. He will meet other decent ones eventually. He is just someone who keeps promises. They ask his name. He tells them, Zedaron. They all thank him. He looks at these three identical fourth circle assassins standing there with their daggers sheathed and their loyalty sitting in the open and thinks about what that kind of capability means in a family power struggle. He tells them to come with him. Then he goes back to Eddie. Eddie looks up and says, oh, you came back. Acts like he knew this was coming. Says Zed was desperate for the brother information after all. Zed says he is not there for information about the brothers anymore. He thought Eddie would have more. He is there to buy the Kimzera triplets. Eddie immediately sits up straighter because that is not the offer he was expecting. He says, wait, you came here originally because of those three and not because of the brother intelligence. Zed says he changed priorities. The brother information is probably not going to be worth it for him. Eddie just handed Zed something without meaning to. The look on his face right now. He got played. He was so certain he knew what Zed wanted, and the certainty made him miss that Zed already shifted the objective. He sighed, says fine. The triplets are vice captains in the organization. He is the captain. The price is more than Zed is imagining. He wants to know everything. How Zed got out of Kreen, how he moved through the south, what he built, all of it. Zed is the most interesting thing that has happened in this city in a long time, and Eddie wants the full story. Zed looks at him and says, honestly, your goals are smaller than I thought. Eddie stands up, full fury, asks what he means by that. Zed says he expected Eddie to ask for something bigger, but like they say, people operate according to their limits. Eddie grabs him by the collar, says everything good in Zed's life is a product of birth and blood, and he has no idea what actual ambition looks like without the backing of a dynasty. The red eye stares back at him. The triplets step in immediately and remind Eddie that grabbing an R hand by the collar is a category of problem that does not end well. Eddie, let's go, says he got carried away, asks what Zed wants. Zed says answer me this first. Who is standing in front of you right now? Eddie says an R hand son, as Zed's, and if you hate nobles, the correct move is not just to hate them, it is to use them. Eddie asks what that means. Are you telling me to use you? Zed says he is telling Eddie that the information he can access from down here in the shadows is genuinely limited. Everything that actually matters in the city happens at the noble level. If he wants real influence, he has to operate in the world where real decisions get made. He has to come into the light, and Zed is going to help him do that. He will give him a building in the middle of the city. He will set up a private investigation agency there. He will assign a Mahadan guard for security, and Eddie will run it not as a front, as an actual business. In the real world, Eddie asks if he is sure this is real. A building, a Mahadan, you will give that. Zed says he does not break promises and this is not an offer Eddie gets a second time. Eddie thinks about it. Everything important in NECA runs through nobles. The intelligence he collects from the underworld is fragments and scraps compared to what moves through those towers. He would be twice as effective with half the effort if he had access to that layer. He extends his hand. He's in. Zed shakes it, then says perfect. Now about the payment. He will be handing over the brother intelligence and the triplets. Both. That is the price. Days later, Zed arrives at the Orion mansion. Ryu says he did not sleep at all last night. Zed says neither did he. He spent the whole time absorbing everything Eddie compiled on the brothers. Alliances, spending patterns, personal details. Even the servants. The level of intelligence Eddie has assembled from down in those alleys is terrifying. If this man gets a proper building and a Mahadan and access to noble society, the information ecosystem of this entire city is going to shift, and most people will not notice until it has already happened. At the gate, the guard calls out for identification. Sees Zed, says, oh, Master Zed, we were notified. Follow him, then says none of the people with him can enter. Zed says they are his companions and he vouches for them. Soldier says nobody enters without the Master's permission. Zed tells everyone to wait outside and goes in alone. Lacto says he has a bad feeling about this. Zed says it is fine, nothing is going to happen, then walks through the gate thinking he is 90% certain something is about to go wrong for everyone waiting outside. He is hoping the triplets are enough of a buffer. Inside, the gate opens, and there is the patriarch, Janadin Arhan, the man who killed every single one of his brothers and took the family throne with his own hands. A great mage, one of only two in the entire empire who has reached that level. He is sitting in a chair, and he looks like something that has already decided what it thinks of you before you finished entering the room. He looks like the final boss cutscene rendered in human form. He welcomes his youngest son. Zed says, "Hey master, how is it going?" And immediately his legs are trying to file a complaint because the aura coming off this man with zero effort is doing things to the air around them that should require equipment to measure. Zed tells himself not to shake. His vision blurs slightly. The sound of the room distorts at the edges. He responds that things feel the same as always, which is the most composed lie he has ever told. The patriarch laughs. The walls shake. The floor groans. Zed's organs briefly consider relocating. He is standing in the presence of something that makes Fernando feel like mild social anxiety by comparison. He thinks about what he knows about this man. One of the only two great mages in the Empire. A man so powerful that when he reached for the family throne, every brother who stood against him simply stopped being a problem. Every single one of them. He did not lose a single fight. He did not show restraint. He reached for something and he took it. The patriarch says Zed has changed too much since the last time he saw him as a weak child. Zed feels himself straighten automatically because the word weak in an Arahan household is apparently physically intolerable. He says an Arahan cannot be called weak. The patriarch laughs again and the room does the thing again. Then he says he can see Zed has awakened thunder energy. He wants to know everything the boy has figured out about it. Zed says he knows it operates above the 4 base elements. The patriarch pauses. He says it is interesting but asks why Zed has energy specifically. Everyone in the family tends toward fire. Zed says with Arahan blood being what it is not surprising that a rare attribute would appear. The patriarch asks how Zed is not surprised by something that appears once every 100 years. Zed says if something that rare is going to appear anywhere, obviously it belongs here. The patriarch laughs a third time, and this time the protagonist is genuinely concerned about his spleen. He says it has been a very long time since he laughed that hard, then says he called Zed back specifically because of the thunder attribute. He wants Zed to research it. Develop it. If it reaches a high level, it could be more significant than any family achievement in the historical record. Zed understands what this is. The patriarch wants a thunder child, a trophy, the narrative of the most powerful family in the empire producing the rarest magical attribute in a century. Zed is being given resources not out of love, but because he is suddenly interesting. That is fine. Useful is useful. He says he will follow the master's commands. Then the patriarch says, but before that, they need to address the DeVito situation. Did Zed know the slave trader was connected to the family? Zed says yes. The patriarch slams the table and asks why he went ahead and punished him anyway. Zed is biting the inside of his cheek hard enough to think about structural integrity. He says he did not do anything that would damage the family. Slave trading is something the family will eventually need to distance itself from entirely because it conflicts with imperial goals. Long term, it brings more liability than profit. The patriarch says that is contradictory because the operation is currently profitable and profitable things do not get cut. Zed shifts, says there is a difference between legal profit and profit that creates exposure. An Arahan should not accept dirty money. The brightest coins are the only ones that should be in this house. The patriarch tells him to stop with the sophistry, then asks directly about the Bahal situation. You were not invited, you were kidnapped, fine. But you came back with a white horse, with the enemy's companion animal. The protagonist pivots hard. He says he showed Arahan pride in front of Fernando directly. He was kidnapped and still came back with something the family never managed to get from Bahal through any negotiation in its entire history. He should be getting praised, not interrogated. A lot of Bahal people watched an Arahan walk out of their territory with that horse. The reputation value alone is worth more than the DeVito connection. The patriarch stares at him for what feels like a geologically significant amount of time, then says that Zed is the youngest one and is sitting there trying to fool him with that tongue. He knows everything said has a small amount of truth somewhere in it, and the argument that he deserves praise instead of punishment actually holds some logic. He flips like a switch, and Zed has absolutely no idea how to process the shift in temperature. The patriarch says the conversation is over. What does Zed want? He asks for his mansion allowance. Every son gets resources to manage their household. He wants that, and he wants his Marudin guard unit, the protective force assigned to family members. The patriarch says fine. Guard unit assigned. Full responsibility falls on Zed for everything they do. He agrees. The patriarch then asks about the people Zed brought. The old blacksmith, the 3 assassins, the sibling servants. He says yes to the assassins and the siblings. Says no to the blacksmith. Lacto Shivan is listed as a traitor to the empire. Bringing him here means arrest and imperial transfer. Zed asks if the Arahan family was involved in the Shivan situation. The patriarch asks why he is asking. Zed says the Shivan family never traded with the Arahans. They worked almost exclusively with the Martyrs family. If Arahan was not a major trading partner, there was no obvious motive for the family to move against them. The patriarch laughs, normally this time, and says he does not care about the Martyrs family. Even being second ranked, they are insects by comparison. Why would he involve himself in a fight between insects? Zed hears this and files it immediately. The Arahans were not involved in the Shivan massacre, which means Lacto is not an enemy of this house. He asks the patriarch to allow Lacto to stay. The patriarch says he cannot allow a convicted traitor on family land. Zed says the conviction was fabricated and asks for help clearing the name. The patriarch says he understands the claim but asks why he would invest resources in that. Zed explains, Lacto Siobhan is the most skilled magical equipment craftsman alive. If the air hands have him producing exclusively for the family and simultaneously clear his name, they absorb both the capability and the goodwill. The family becomes stronger in a measurable way. The patriarch thinks for a moment, says fine, the man can stay. He will not clear the name. That is Zed's problem to solve. Zed says that works. He will handle it himself. The patriarch tells him to leave. Zed walks out. Behind him, the patriarch sits still. A man who looks like something between a corpse and a final boss materializes from the shadows next to him. This is Callus, leader of the Marudin. He says the boy seems suspicious. The patriarch agrees. The mind inside does not belong to a child. Then he stretches and laughs and says, did you see that little fool trying to convince him with all those arguments? A child. No shame whatsoever. Callus asks if they should punish him. The patriarch says the eyes were desperate. The look of someone who will say and do whatever it takes to get what they want. That is not enough by itself. Only those who reach beyond genius lead this family. But he is curious what comes next. He says he will take the youngest to the mysterious tomb when the timing is appropriate. The group arrives at the mansion assigned to Zed. It is a wreck. Paint peeling. Dust everywhere. Yu immediately starts cataloging the amount of work required with the energy of someone who grew up cleaning things for survival. Zed looks around and says the Kimza guys will help with the cleaning, then starts cleaning a window himself. The Marudin unit shows up. 20 men, 5th circle each. The weakest group the family had available, which means the best people all went to the older brothers, and these guys got assigned to the one who just came back from exile and probably will not last. They are not excited. Zed is not excited about them either, but he greets them professionally. The lead one asks what Zed was doing. He says cleaning. The guy says yes, he saw that, but Zed is doing it himself. Zed says yes, obviously the mansion is filthy and they are all going to live in it. He tells the guy to grab a broom since he has so much to say. The Marudin members are processing the instruction to use magic units to clean a house. The water mages get directed to wet the floors. The wind mage gets pointed at the smoke-stained walls. They work. The mansion gets cleaned. Everyone is slightly confused by how this happened. That night they have no food. The kitchen situation is exactly what you would expect from a completely unstaffed empty mansion that has not been used in a while. Ryu says everyone is hungry. Zed asks which mansion is closest. They say Tunda's. The unit members immediately start sweating. Visiting a sibling mansion without a formal invitation is borderline declaration of conflict in Arhan family politics. Zed says great. He was planning to deal with that guy anyway. He rides over. Meanwhile, at Tunda's mansion, Tunda is throwing plates because the onion smell in his food is offensive to him personally. He's the kind of person who treats every minor inconvenience like a war crime. He is also the kind of person who has a very specific person running his household, and that person is Grace Monet. Grace is tall, composed, running the entire operation behind the scenes with the efficiency of someone who has been playing a very long game for a very long time. She has charm magic that keeps Tunda manageable. She has ambitions that extend well beyond making sure the food temperature is correct. And she has a face that holds 6 expressions in rotation depending on what the situation requires, and none of them are the ones she is actually feeling. She is also clearly dangerous in a specific way that does not announce itself until it is already too late and she has decided something needs to happen. Then a maid runs in. Young Master Zed is here. Grace slams the table before the sentence is finished. She immediately calculates responses. How many opponents? Just him, alone. She recalculates, goes from war mode to okay. He is here alone, this should be manageable mode. Then the main hall door opens and Zed walks in and says, hey, are you guys in the middle of a meal? Soldiers materialize from every direction in the room. Zed looks at them, asks who all these servants are, why are none of them bowing? Someone awkward nearby says, young Master Zed, what brings you here? But Zed is already looking at Grace specifically. He says, so you are the maid Grace, you are not going to greet me. She hits him with a stare that is the emotional equivalent of a thrown knife. She wonders what happened to this kid. He used to collapse when threatened. Now he has an aura that is completely different, and he walked in here alone, which means he is either very confident or very stupid, and he does not look stupid. She also just noticed the priest's insignia. She bows, introduces herself as Grace Monet, attendant of Master Tunda. Inside, she is absolutely furious that she is bowing to a 15-year-old who is supposed to be irrelevant. Zed tells her that losing track of her actual energy like that is careless. She flinches. He noticed everything. Then Tunda stands up, tells the trash that nobody has to greet him. He is the elder one here, spit it out. Why are you crawling to his house? Zed looks at Tunda with the expression of someone looking at a chair that someone else is sitting in, just pure assessment with no emotional investment. He says he apologizes for the misunderstanding, his amazing older brother. The sarcasm has the structural integrity of a hammer. Tunda starts building a fire spell. Grace immediately grabs his arm, says, Master, stop. Tunda wants to know why she is blocking him after being disrespected. She says she will explain later, but do not escalate this right now. She turns to Zed and apologizes on Tunda's behalf. Zed says it is nice dealing with someone who catches on quickly. She asks what he wants. He says he just moved in and has nothing to eat. He would like them to share some food. She puts her hand over her face, tells them to bring whatever meat and bread is available, then asks when Zed is leaving, if that is really all he wants today. He says that is all for today, but they should get comfortable seeing him around. Then rides Pearl back to his mansion while Grace stands in the hall with her composure fully intact and her plans already updating. At the mansion, everyone eats. Barbecue. Knights eat meat. Mages eat bread. That is apparently the rule in this world. Mages touching meat is considered barbaric behavior that degrades their dignity. Zed says that is insane and tells everyone in his house that from today forward there are no dietary rules based on class identity. Do what you want. Eat what you want. As long as the work gets done, the rest is not anyone's business. The Marudin members sit down with the food looking like they are committing a minor heresy and also kind of enjoying it. Next morning, Zed is in a real estate negotiation. There is a building registered under a front name that actually belongs to Tunda's operation. Zed walks in with the documents proving the transfer chain, drops them on the table, and tells the guy sitting there that the building belongs to the Arahan family and he needs to sign it over to him personally right now or he is going to have a very specific problem. The guy signs. Then Zed takes it to the mayor's office to formalize the transfer. The Mayor Douglas is the kind of person where you genuinely cannot tell if you are dealing with a very corrupt man or a very reasonable one until you have already committed to the conversation. He processes the paperwork, notes that technically the original use of a front name registration could be classified as theft. His young master Zed is a peculiar one. Zed says he is not interested in why other Arahans hide their names, he is just here for the building. Then Grace kicks the door open using enchantment magic in a building where enchantment is explicitly restricted. The mayor points this out. She asks if the one breaking rules here is not the mayor himself, then tells Zed he is stabbing his own family in the back. Zed says he has no idea what she is talking about. The name on the transfer is the Frudman. Frudman transferred voluntarily. Everything legitimate. She warns him that he is making a mistake he will not be able to walk back. He tells her that she is the one being too bold yelling in a restricted facility, and she should understand that whatever they do to him, he returns it tenfold. Arahan family always keeps promises. He stole his brother's building, threatened the person trying to stop him, and walked out smiling. The Arahan corruption of this man is genuinely moving at speed. Eddie shows up at the new building, looks around, says, okay, so this is the place. Am I actually working here? Zed says yes. From now on, Eddie is in charge of running operations from this location. Eddie says he doubted him, but he genuinely did not expect Zed to move that fast. He hands Zed a list. It is every licensed mage currently residing in Nika categorized by circle and specialty. Then says, does Zed need a teacher? Because as far as Eddie knows, Zed does not have a master, and for someone whose primary goal is getting strong enough to survive his own family, not having a teacher at this stage is a meaningful gap. Zed looks at the list, does not recognize any of the names, asks who Eddie recommends. Eddie says immediately that the only name worth considering is Krang Gutra. Zed has never heard of him. Eddie explains that the Gutra family are famous mercenary mages from the eastern region. Very old history, not widely known anymore. One Gutra is apparently considered worth more than an entire company of mercenaries in terms of combat output. They are extremely expensive. Only the wealthiest nobles can afford them. And this particular one has been retired for a few years and is staying at the best hotel in Naka, which tells you everything about what level his earnings were at when he was working. The rat-eater muscle in the back confirms he has heard of the Gutrace. Their reputation is not exaggerated. He says he thinks Krang specifically is the right fit because Zed is not a normal mage. The way he fights, the way he moves, the fact that he won every fight in the southern region using a combination of physical technique and minimal magic rather than distance casting, that is a skill profile that a mercenary mage who spent a career in actual life or death situations would understand better than any academic instructor. Zed says maybe he is not a normal mage. Eddie says obviously he is not, and that is the whole point. Then the door gets hit so hard it nearly leaves the frame. Tunda is outside. He found out about the building. He is screaming. He demands Grace explain how she let this happen and how much of his money is invested in that property. Grace tells him, Master, for the love of everything, please calm down and look into her eyes. He looks. The charm magic hits. His eyes on focus. He apologizes. She walks away, sits, thanks, and drains his savings account right there with a few well-placed suggestions because the money she extracts from him while he is under the effect is going to fund whatever she is planning to do about Zed. The man is basically a human atom that she has the pin number to. She tells him he is a very cute boy, especially when he is difficult. He thanks her. This relationship is a crime, but it is running on a schedule only Grace controls. They leave Tunda's situation alone for now and head to the best hotel in Nika. Eddie gets stopped at the door because he is not a noble. Zed says, yeah, looks like you are staying out here, idiot, and walks in. Eddie stands on the street with the specific energy of a man who has needed a moment to recalibrate his worldview and is doing so through clenched teeth. Inside, the lobby is the most expensive thing Zed has seen since arriving in this world, and he's been to Fernando's mansion. There is gold everywhere, but not in the gaudy, obvious way, in the architectural way that says the person who designed this had access to unlimited money and extremely refined taste, and those two things meeting in a room produces exactly this result. He asks for the guest list. The woman at the front says she can share the regular room occupants, but not the suites. She goes to get the list. Zed thinks about this. If the Arahan name does not move people here, it means someone with more influence than a standard Arahan family member is in residence. That means it is probably one of the older brothers. First or second most likely given the scale of wealth on display. The regular guest list does not have Krang on it, which means suites. He is about to figure out a different approach when from the second floor, a voice cuts through the hotel ambience with absolute contempt for everyone who can hear it. Someone is furious about a steak. The butler is explaining that the steak is correctly identified. The guest is explaining that the butler does not know what he is talking about because he has eaten that particular steak many times, and this is not it. The voice has the energy of someone who has extremely high standards and no patience for people who have lower ones. Zed looks up toward the sound, bald, clearly a mage by the build, making a scene about food quality in a luxury hotel with the confidence of someone who has never once worried about what other people think of them. That matches the description Eddie gave. He walks up. The moment the old man turns around and sees Zed, his expression does the thing faces do when something unexpected has appeared in your immediate vicinity. He looks at Zed, looks at the aura, then walks past him and says out loud that an air hand first thing in the morning is a bad omen for the entire day. Just says it, to nobody, into the air. Like a personal complaint filed with the universe. Zed stares after him and thinks this is the man who is supposed to become his master. Outside, Eddie is waiting and immediately asks if Zed saw that old man. Zed says yeah, he knows, that is Krang. Eddie looks at him like he is about to deliver a eulogy, says he warned him. The man does not have a difficult personality. He has a catastrophically broken personality. Those are two completely different categories. He suggests going back to the list and finding someone more manageable because that conversation in there is not going to happen. Zed says his mana is stuck at 5. It has not moved since the elixirs. He is training every day, eating right, sleeping correctly, and the number is not going anywhere. 5 mana is better than 0, but it is not enough to do what he needs to do going into the Arahan power struggle. The problem is he is not a meditation guy. He cannot just sit in a garden and breathe until the numbers go up. He needs something else. He needs someone who understands what it means to build strength through actual combat rather than circle theory. And that means he needs Krang. Then Eddie takes off running, not metaphorically. He just starts sprinting down the street. Zed runs after him asking what is happening. Eddie is saying between breaths that he just spotted Krang somewhere else. He is following him. He found out the man has a specific weakness, and the weakness is high quality birth and steak from the Bo family. And Tor has actually mentioned before leaving that he was going to send some of that exact steak, which means if Zed can get that steak in front of this man, it changes the entire approach. They find Krang at a different location eating. Zed walks up and says, "Sir." The old man slams the table and asks if this Arahan bastard is here to ruin another meal. He turns and asks if Zed is there to charge him a hotel bill. Zed just stands there thinking there is no way to communicate with this human being through normal means. He turns to leave, and then 2 daggers fly in from nowhere, trailing through the air, aiming directly at him. They hit the floor, blocked by Krang, who moved in front of Zed in approximately half a second without looking at the daggers. The old man examines his own hand and asks what that was. Zed stares at him, asks if he just blocked those by putting mana directly into his finger. The old man tells him to watch his mouth. If he saw it coming, he should have dodged himself. Zed says he could have dodged, but the old man stepped in front of him first. And what is actually incredible is that the block happened without Krang looking at the daggers once, half a second. No visual tracking, pure spatial awareness operating at a level Zed has never seen from anyone. Krang says not to get twisted. He only moved because if an Arahan died next to him, it would create a problem for him. This is not altruism. This is risk management. Then he says now is not the time, and the crowd is already scattering because 3 assassins are walking in with the energy of people who are paid to do something specific and intend to do it. Krang steps out of the way and announces he is watching, not participating, just observing. The assassins are confused because the old bald man just stepped aside like this is a nature documentary. Then one of them looks at the symbol on Krang's forehead, the tooth and claws of the Gutra family, and every single assassin immediately drops to their knees. Not for Zed or the old man. They are emotional. Say it is an honor to meet a living legend. Krang tells them they are embarrassments who call themselves mercenaries while taking assassination contracts. Real mercenaries have causes. These people are just expensive thugs. The men bow their heads and apologize. Job market is rough. Families to feed. Krang says those are excuses, and excuses are not causes. Then he turns and says that now that they have accepted the contract, they have to finish it. That is the minimum standard. He sits back down. Good luck to everyone. He is not involved. The assassins fire back up with renewed intent. Zed activates the electrification. The lightning comes out and the red eye starts glowing, and the assassins immediately figure out they are not killing an ordinary person today. They are looking at an Arahan. They start backing up. Zed clenches his fist and a whip of lightning crosses the chest of the nearest one. He is walking forward with pure aura pouring off him, and for the first time, the thunder power is starting to feel like something he understands instead of something he is borrowing. No enchantment needed, no casting time, it is just there. In a world where every mage needs seconds to build a spell, that gap in reaction time is the difference between winning and not having a conversation afterward. Then the Kimzera triplets show up, all three of them, apologizing for being late, explaining that they received a contract to kill Zed, which is how they found out he was being hunted. They are literally laughing about this. Someone out there tried to hire the people who are already loyal to Zed to kill Zed. The person behind this is going to turn out to be Grace, and everyone already knows it, but they need the assassins to confirm it. Zed tells them to talk. The assassins say giving up a client's name is the absolute minimum professional standard, and they will not do it. Zed says they are going to keep getting hit until they change their mind. The Kimzeras go in. A golden aura sweeps them all back. Krang steps forward and says the junior should not die to something this stupid. Zed asks if he is getting involved now. Krang says the assassins will not talk regardless of how much they get beaten because they are under an illusion lock. Their minds and mouths literally cannot say the client's name right now, and the fact that Zed could not detect an illusion that basic is evidence he has a lot to learn. Zed says he can probably break the lock himself. Krang says stop, then makes an offer. He is curious about that energy, about what Zed's real ability actually is. So here's the deal. If Zed can scratch him in a one-on-one fight, Krang will grant whatever he wants. The old man specifically says actually defeating him is impossible, so the bar is just making contact. Change the wish if he wants, yes or no. Zed says yes immediately. This is exactly what he needed because this is the test. Either Krang is worth learning from, or he is not. And this fight answers that question faster than any conversation could. The old man shifts his foot and vanishes, reappears directly in front of Zed, says this area is too crowded, then teleports them both to a field outside the city. Zed's first teleport. His organs have opinions about this. Krang says the kid looks shaken and that he came out here because he was bored. Now show him something. Zed asks how he teleported. That is a 7-circle technique minimum. Krang says being obsessed with rank is weak-minded. In a real fight, circles tell you nothing about what actually happens. Experience in life and death situations, instincts, how your body reacts without being told to. Those things decide fights, not numbers. Zed thinks about this and realizes it is true. Every person he has beaten who outranked him lost because they expected him to fight like the thing they thought he was. He got excited. Krang asks why he is looking at him like that. Zed says he agrees completely. He has always trusted experience over everything else. Krang says opponents, kid at your age. Zed drops into the boxing stance. Lightning spreads across the ground, tearing it up, and Krang says that attribute is genuinely strong. No wonder it is called the dream attribute. Zed says the old man better go all out because he is not accepting excuses afterward. He already has the plan. Everyone assumes the mage keeps distance. The moment the guard drops, rush in. Standard Zed playbook. Krang laughs and says a lion goes all out, even hunting a rabbit. Zed charges at full speed, gets within arm's reach, throws the punch, something happens. He jerks his gaze upward. 3 explosions go off in the ground around him and he is forced backward. Wind barrier. Pre-set in the ground before Zed even finished moving. The old man says his instincts are not bad. 1/10 of a second slower and he would have been skewered. And then he adds that he could tell what Zed was going to do by looking at his stance. He has never seen anyone hold their hands up like that, but it is obviously close-range combat positioning. Guarding the chin, guarding the solar plexus, one leg back ready to kick, not a mage's form. Krang already had the whole plan mapped before Zed threw the first movement. Zed thinks this man just read his entire strategy from the way he was standing before the fight started. He is furious and also extremely impressed and also furious again. The old man sits down and literally yawns, says that is all he has. Go ahead, show him more. Zed starts circling fast. The old man asks if he is trying to make an elderly man dizzy. He is stretching. He is yawning again. Zed knows this is a provocation designed to make him snap and rush in recklessly. He almost falls for it. He holds back. Krang says the kid held back well, but asks where that courage went. And then Zed actually snaps. He explodes into a full lightning storm. Challenger trait activates. +10 everything. He comes in from behind at full speed going for the back, hits something, but it is a clone. The real Krang's voice comes from somewhere else saying the kid is stupid, too focused on his own offense to think about the opponent's counter. And then Zed steps into a magic circle that was already drawn on the ground and chains wrap around him from every direction. He is a mummy, a lightning mummy. He cannot breathe, cannot move. The chains are tight enough that the pressure is real. The old man walks up calmly and says he landed right in the middle, did he not? Admit the loss and stay alive. Inside the chains, Zed realizes he could not feel the gap between them until he was inside it. He actually thought he had a chance. The old man keeps going, says to give up before the oxygen runs out. The protagonist panics, starts trying to figure out how to break chains with no arm movement. And then the Challenger trait timer runs out and deactivates. And seeing that word, Challenger, something clicks. He came to this world because he ran out of challenges, because there was nothing left, because he had beaten everything. And now there is something in front of him he has never beaten, and he is thinking about giving up. That is not why he answered whatever called him here. He did not travel across dimensions to tap out to chains. A lion goes everything it has, even hunting a rabbit. The old man said to himself. He reactivates Tenacious Challenger, plus 10 again, and then pulls lightning down from the sky directly into the chains he is wrapped in. Not at the old man. Into himself. He is electrifying his own prison from the inside. Krang sees the lightning crawling along the chains and asks out loud if the kid has genuinely lost his mind. He is burning oxygen and electricity simultaneously inside a sealed metal structure. The protagonist is not dropping one bolt. He drops 3, then 4, then 5 in sequence. The chains start turning red, then cracking. Then the protagonist starts forcing his way free and says today he is going to win and Krang is going to be his master. Krang says that is the most ridiculous thing he has heard. He is not wasting his remaining good years training an airhand child. He would rather die. The protagonist says the old man has already lost because he is getting out, and the deal said if he scratches him, he wins. Krang says enough. He conjures white energy in his palm and tells Zed if he takes one more step, he will die. Zed says do it because if he does not kill him, he is not stopping. Krang stares at this 15-year-old who has been wrapped in chains, losing oxygen, and is still telling him to go harder. He throws the energy upward. A massive sword forms in the sky above Zed and starts coming down. The Spear of Judgment, 8th Circle technique. The kind of power that makes people decide to become mages in the first place just from seeing it. Zed looks up at it and says it is incredible that the old man was hiding an 8th circle this whole time. Krang freezes, asks how he knew the circle count, then says unfortunately the kid has to die here. The spear comes down and hits Zed dead center in the chest. The whole area lights up like a camera flash. Krang is standing there waiting for the smoke to clear. Then a hand grabs his arm from behind. He gets slammed to the ground. He is lying on his back looking up and has absolutely no frame of reference for what just happened. He says he has lived a long time and has never been defeated by a child. His clothes are ruined. He is lying in the dirt next to a 15-year-old. He shoves the hand away. He thinks. 7 years ago, he walked away from the mercenary life because there was nothing left to do. No goals, no purpose. His final years were supposed to be peaceful. But what was that ability? The one that nullified the spear at point blank. And what kind of kid throws himself into a fight he cannot win with the intention of winning anyway? And if this child who only recently unlocked mana is already operating at this level, what does that look like in a few years? The word Tamaji crosses his mind and he hates that it makes sense. If someone like that appears, the empire itself shakes. And if he helps this kid, that possibility is not zero. He kicks Zed and tells him to wake up. Every second of life is precious. He puts a hand on him and then stops. Stares. The kid does not have a mana circle. He has the electric attribute, clearly high quality mana given what it just did, but the circle is not even fully formed yet. He has half a circle. How is someone with half a circle breaking 8th circle spells? What is this? Then he feels it. Someone watching. He should be the only one out here, but he is not. The Kim Zera triplets come sprinting around the corner asking what the old man did to the kid. Krang tells them to back off, then shadows form and a man in black steps out, asks if this is Krang Gutra. Krang says if you know who I am, you must be ranking. The shadow man introduces himself, Robin, captain of the Black Mirror. Says it is an honor to meet the hero of the great demonic war. They are there to check the boy's condition. Krang says no. Robin says the boy is an Erhan's son. Is Krang working against the family? And then Krang, this retired mercenary who has not said he cares about anything in 7 years, says something that surprises everyone, including himself. He says he is never letting them take his disciple. Robin is confused. Disciple? What disciple? The fight happened 11 minutes ago. The old man says get out. Robin says even Krang will not survive the Arhan family's anger. The old man says he found something worth doing with his remaining years, and they are the ones interfering. Robin pushes harder. The family leader ordered retreat. A message gets delivered that the interference today will be repaid at a time of the family's choosing. Krang says good. If the leader wants to come personally, that is a different conversation. Until then, everyone else can leave. They vanish. The last thing Robin says is that the Airhands always keep their word. Krang watches them go, thinks about what he just committed to, then looks down at the unconscious 15-year-old in the dirt and thinks this kid is genuinely unlucky to have been born into that family. That eye color has been a death sentence from the moment he arrived in this world. But maybe that is exactly why he fights the way he does. And maybe that is exactly why Krang is standing here in a ruined field outside Nika, having agreed to something he said he would never do again. Zed wakes up at Eddie's place, sits up. Kimzeras are running around. Krang is there looking like he has been waiting with maximum impatience for minimum amount of time. He tells Zed he really does look like a child when he is unconscious. All he does is sleep. Zed asks what happened. They tell him the old man is claiming to be his master. Zed thinks, remembers the deal. He won. Then he looks to the side. The assassins who tried to kill him are kneeling in a row. He looks at Krang and says he told him he was not going to get involved. The old man says, oh, did he say that? Getting old. Memory is not what it used to be. Zed sits across from the lead assassin, says he knows it was Grace working for Tunda who sent them. The man's face does the involuntary reaction that answers the question before the mouth does. Zed says he is not going to punish them, just one condition. When the next contract comes from Grace, come warn him first. Continue working under her until then. The man asks if he means become a double agent. Zed says at least he is smart. The man accepts. Zed knows even they could betray him, but they would have to be complete idiots to go against Krang for Grace's sake. That math does not work in anyone's favor. Then one of the Kimzeras hands over a message from Ryu. The mausoleum ceremony starts next month. It is the bloodline authentication ritual that grants official recognition as a legitimate Arahan heir. After it passes, the participant gets the right to pursue the family headship and wears the Arahan cloak, a magical item passed down since Tamuji's time that stops blades and cannot be burned. It is also when sibling competition formally begins. Missions, tests, failures that strip resources and favor. Zed notes that it is him and Tunda going, just the two youngest. The patriarch is staging something. Krang asks if training should be pushed back given how busy the next stretch is going to be. Zed says the mausoleum preparation is going to drain a lot. Yeah, the old man nods. Then says that is fine, but the condition still applies. 100 gold coins per month. Only then is the word master acceptable. Zed stares at him, asks if he is aware that the man is famously wealthy. Krang does not respond to this. Days pass. Back at Eddie's building, the mercenaries who went to report the failed assassination to Grace show up in rough shape. 5 of them got cut apart. They survived, but barely. Tuna authorized it through Grace, and they are done. They want revenge. They are crying, genuinely crying. These hired killers are sitting in Eddie's information agency sobbing over their brothers. Zed puts a hand on the lead man's shoulder and says Grace is going to answer for this. By their hands, if it comes to that, he then sits with Eddie and the Kimzeras and lays it out. Tunda's real operation in the city runs through a network disguised as an exchange company that is actually an intelligence gathering front. Now everyone in this room is going to help each other. Eddie's agency, the Kimzeras, the mercenary company that just fully switched sides, interconnected, protected, operational. He tells the mercenaries to stay in Eddie's building for now. Money handled. The mercenary leader thanks him and says Zed is kind. Zed is standing there having just promised violence on someone's behalf and organized a shadow network and stolen his brother's building and is being called kind. He does not correct this. One of them warns him before leaving, says that woman Grace has eyes that are not human. Whatever she is planning, the moment is coming very soon, and when it does, it is going to be fast. Zed just stands there looking at the middle distance, not saying anything. Then it is the night before the ceremony and Krang has brought him to a rooftop overlooking all of Nekka. The city from above looks like someone scattered gold coins across a dark cloth and they all landed face up. There is a table, eggs with markings, small knives, little crystalline balls, training equipment. Krang says when he decides to do something, he does it completely. That is why Zed needs to be ready, because when he gets back from the mausoleum, the real training begins. Zed says that is exactly what he wants. Krang calls him an arrogant child and then tells him to break the golden ball on the table with his bare hand. No lightning, no power, just the fist. Zed thinks it is a mana stone requiring first circle to crack. He turns off the form but keeps the internal electrification running in his body and punches it. It breaks. Krang tells him to break the next one. He does. Krang says that one requires 2 circles. Zed is standing there looking at a broken stone and also looking at his own hand like he is not sure when that happened. Krang explains. Every mage in the world develops their circles as mana grows. The stronger the mana, the more circles, and each circle multiplies the power available. Zed has not even formed his first complete circle yet. He has half of one. Half. And he just broke a 2-circle stone with his physical strength because his physical stats at full capacity output something equivalent. The old man says, think about what happens when he reaches circle 10. His 10th circle is going to hit differently from every other 10th circle mage who has ever existed, because the base it is built on is this. Whatever this is, something that should not exist biologically. Then he says something that lands like a stone in still water. He says Zed might surpass Tamuji, the man who the entire game's lore is built around mourning, the strongest being in the Empire's history, dead before the story even starts, so powerful that the world is still recovering from his absence. The old man says this quietly like he is not entirely comfortable with the thought but cannot argue against it. Zed stares at him, asks if he is serious. Krang smacks him on the head, tells him to stop daydreaming, get out of here, do the ceremony properly tomorrow. Zed thanks him. Krang says things have not even started yet. Then Zed asks if Krang is free tomorrow. The old man's expression changes slightly, and we understand without being told that Zed asked him to come to the mountain. Next morning, the Arahan Patriarch's throne room. The Joker is sitting, and Tunda is vibrating with anxiety next to him. Zed notices immediately that Grace's charm magic is not affecting him anymore. He walks in. The Patriarch asks what the mausoleum ceremony is. Zed says it is the pure blood authentication. Tunda tries to say the same thing, and the Patriarch tells him to shut up and that the question was not for him. Tunda apologizes with the energy of someone who has never once been allowed to be anything other than apologetic in this room. The Patriarch says the Arahan cloak is an inheritance from Tamuji's era. Anyone who wears it is a true Arahan. To earn it, they must prove themselves through their own strength with no guards. From today forward, they will be held to the same standard as every other sibling. Zed says he understands. Then they leave. Behind them, the patriarch sits alone. Then Callus materializes from nowhere, as he always does, reporting that Grace Mane's movements have been detected. He asks for orders. The patriarch says, do not send the Black Mirror. He wants to see how the youngest handles it. Callus says that is dangerous. The youngest might not make it back. The patriarch says then he will find out if the youngest was worth anything in the first place. Callus accepts the order. Outside, Captain Caden introduces himself as the escort for today. Zed looks at his unit immediately and calculates. These are the mages they sent to protect a ceremony that involves no guards, which means they are either completely disposable or the Patriarch is genuinely curious what Zed can do when the support is minimal. Both answers are equally unsettling. Tunda is lying on Grace's cushions saying he is scared. Grace is cooing at him saying it is fine. Zed shows up, grabs Tuna's arm and tells the big head to get up because everyone is waiting. Grace tells him to stop. Zed says everyone is already waiting for Tunda too, so enough crying. Grace tells him that making Tunda look weak in front of the staff is embarrassing. Zed says the embarrassment is Tunda himself, then tells everyone to move out. They start climbing Mount Tan. Tunda immediately begins complaining that this is insane, and Grace should have arranged a carriage. He is asking Grace why there is no carriage. Zed is already ahead of everyone, working up a light sweat. Humming, he looks back and sees Tunda getting carried on Caden's back. He turns around, pulls Tuna off, and tells him that if he cannot help, then at least do not hold everyone back. Tuna slaps his hand away. Zed warns every single person in this escort that from this point on, anyone who carries Tuna gets punished. Climbing this mountain is part of the test. Anyone who falls behind stays behind. Then he takes off at a run. They reach the peak with the soldiers completely wrecked and sprawled on the ground. Ryo is apparently there, which Zed did not know because of course Ryo came. A gray-haired attendant says Thunder and Grace have not arrived yet and the sun is setting. Zed asks if there is a rule that the sixth sun goes first. She says no. He says he is going. Standing in front of the Arhan mausoleum, it is warm. He steps through and the space shifts. He is in a void. The attendant appears and explains that only Arhan blood can enter and she is an exception. The altar is ahead. He needs to cut his palm and let the blood touch it for authentication. He walks forward, places his hand on it, and then a voice speaks. He yanks his hand back immediately. The attendant snaps at him to keep his hand there until the process completes. He says he heard something. She tells him she heard nothing, and to keep his hand on the altar. He realizes she cannot hear it. He puts his hand back. The voice says it has been waiting for him for a long time. He asks if it is Temuji Arahan. It says yes. He asks if Temuji is the one who called him here. It says yes. He asks why him. The voice says it was looking for someone obsessed with strength and simultaneously free of corruption and temptation. Zed asks what the reason is, what the purpose is, why any of this. The voice says it is not time for that answer. The stronger he becomes, the more he will feel Temuji's presence, and since he answered the call, he should know that Temuji will always be with him. That last line, the devil's inside the kid now. The most powerful being in the Empire's history just told a 15-year-old that they are permanently sharing his body going forward, and that is just the thing that is happening now. The altar explodes with golden light. The attendant jerks back. She says the light is wrong. It was supposed to be red. Every Arahan before this produced red. Says his brothers have fire. He has lightning. Different color makes sense. Either way, the stone lit up, so they are done here. He wants out of this dimension immediately. The attendant confirms. Pure blood authentication complete. The cloak goes on. The emblem in hand. She announces that Zed Arahan is the 7th heir. He is now sitting at -30 across his attributes from the class penalty, but every stat is S rank underneath, and the emblem is solid in his hand, and the cloak is on, and Tamaji is apparently just living in him now like a roommate who does not pay rent but is impossible to evict. Then Tunda shows up at the top with Grace, yelling at people not to touch him. He sees the cloak and stops, says Zed went first. Zed says he should have climbed faster. Tunda tries to complain to the attendant. She says the rules say whoever arrives first goes first. He did not need to wait. She also informs him that she will be reporting everything that happened today to the family head in full detail without omissions. Tunda goes completely pale and immediately apologizes to everyone in a 3-meter radius. The attendant tells him to just go inside because the temperature is dropping. Caden pulls that aside. Says there is something wrong. He has been feeling a presence on this mountain the whole time and the region is supposed to be empty. More importantly, Grace did not react to it at all. A 6th circle witch does not fail to notice something like that, which means she felt it and chose not to respond. Which means she already knows it is there because she put it there. Zed smiles. Caden realizes immediately that Zed already knew. Zed says probably getting ambushed on the way down. He hands Caden 4 metal spikes and explains that planted in a square formation they create a shadowless barrier that blocks all mana use inside the area. It turns a mage fight into a physical fight. Against a mage stronger than you, that is actually an advantage because it removes the part where they vaporize you from a distance. Caden needs to plant them the moment the fight starts. Ryu is on the peak shivering, notices Grace is gone. Before he can process this, an arrow hits someone next to him, and the word ambush hits the air. He runs forward calling for Zed. Something bright comes flying at Ryo's back, and Zed materializes from nowhere and shoves him clear. Ryo says he keeps disappearing. Zed tells him to stop wasting time. In front of him are soldiers under a strength enhancement spell. Enhancement at that scale requires at least 6 circles from whoever is supporting them. A second noble house sent people. The attack on the mountain of the Arahan Mausoleum. The boldness of that decision is either stupid or a statement. Probably both. Zed slips the first slash and drives an uppercut into the chin. Ducks the mace, cracks the guy across the cheek so hard the purple bruising forms instantly. 3 more come and 3 more go down before the count gets past 2. A maid somewhere in the chaos mutters that he is strangely strong. The girl next to her says do not call him Zed anymore. He is the 7th heir. Zed tells Cotton the next wave is mages and everyone needs to fall back and take a different route. They protest. He explains he cannot protect them and fight at full power simultaneously and they will just become casualties he has to route around. Caden tells everyone to move. They go. Zed continues down alone with the electrification running. At the base of the mountain, the earth starts shaking and a water construct appears. A 6th circle summoning. Everything around it is getting swept. Flash floods rushing toward the position. Zed looks back at where Caden's group is retreating and knows if that wave hits them, it is over. He shouts for the barrier. The spikes go into the ground. The water crashes. Inside the barrier, everything stays dry. Outside it, the mountain base looks like a river. Zed is airborne, hovering, staring at what a 6th circle area spell just did to the terrain around the mausoleum. Whoever ordered this attack on sacred Arahan ground is either suicidal or operating with backing so significant they think the consequences are manageable. Then Grace comes walking out from somewhere and says those bastards are not doing what they agreed to. They were supposed to leave her alive, but they are clearly trying to clean up all the witnesses. Zed turns to her and says he thought she was smart, but she is actually stupid. He explains it simply. She is the only person who knew about the deal with whoever hired these people. Of course they were going to kill her. She says she does not know what he is talking about. He says she is going to play this game all the way to the end. Then a blue boot appears on the ground. A red-haired man drops in from above, tall, built, the kind of person who enters rooms like he already owns them. Grace sees his face and her composure fractures for the first time. She asks how her own brother can betray her like this. The man says they stopped being relevant to each other the day she joined the Arahan family. He introduces himself as Rooker Billy family. He says he is going to end this quickly. Do not take it personally. Zed fires a lightning bolt that almost clips Rooker's shoulder. Rooker looks at the output and says the power level is pathetic. Waste of a rare attribute. Zed says that bolt was a signal. Rooker says he is calling the Black Mirror and tells him he should be nervous about what is coming. Rooker says that was a decent bluff, but not worthy of an Arahan. Nobody shows up. Zed is internally homicidal about the old man's timing right now. Rooker forms a crystal attack and launches it. The Kimzera triplets appear and block it. Apologize for being late. Zed does not look overjoyed, but he is not dead, so the math is acceptable. Rooker watches his sister start running. Says he will let these people deal with the small ones. Grace is his. He goes after her. While Rooker is gone, Zed and the triplets tear through the remaining force. The Kimzeras are furious. They catch people midair and cut through them without hesitation. Zed is raining lightning from above. It looks finished. Then all the surviving mages group together in the center and form a sphere. Linked magic. The technique where multiple lower circle mages pool everything into a single construct. A group of 4th circle mages combining produces something equivalent to a 9th circle output. The sphere is holding against every attack. Something is building inside it. Zed tells everyone to get out. The triplets insist. He says he is the target and there is no reason for them to absorb what is coming. Something claws out of the top of the sphere. Something blue, massive. A water dragon summoned through the combined mana of every mage in the formation. The mages are laughing. They say this was always the plan. This technique was specifically trained to eliminate the Arahan bloodline. It cannot be dodged. Today is the end. Zed tells the triplets to leave. He knows what he has. The immortal gambler trait. One lethal hit every 5 seconds cannot connect. If he can run the clock long enough that the mages drain their mana maintaining this construct, the dragon disappears. 4th circle mages sharing a 9th circle output are burning through reserves at an unsustainable rate. He activates the lightning form and fires at the dragon's head. It charges. It hits him directly. The whole area lights up. He is fine. The mages are losing their minds. The dragon charges again. He jumps and avoids the second. Smoke fills everything. He cannot see it. It comes from behind. Hits him again. Immortal gambler. 5-second window. He jumps. Bought time. Another hit and another. He is basically playing an invincibility game where the timer is the mana reserves of 6 exhausted mages, maintaining a 9th circle construct against a man who refuses to fall down. His own mana runs out. The electric form cuts off. He forces it back on. The dragon prepares the breath attack, the one that does not stop, that streams continuously and does not give the 5-second gap time to matter. He is out of options. He activates 2 lightning charges simultaneously, a double enchantment he has never successfully done before, and fires them both at the dragon. The dragon goes down. Zed hits the ground, completely spent. He is lying there wondering if he dies in this world, whether he goes back or just stops existing. The dragon is down. The mages are out of power. It should be over. Then an explosion. Everything lights up. Debris everywhere. Someone somewhere is screaming, trying to get closer to see what happened to the kid. Red lightning rises from the smoke. Not the gold of Zed's thunder. Red, dark, ancient, something that does not belong to a 15-year-old who has been in this world for a few months. The energy feels like something that remembers when this world was built. The dragon stares at what is standing in the smoke and does not attack. The mages are looking at each other, asking why the dragon is just standing there. How does he still have mana? What is happening? Zed stands in the center, red lightning crackling across him. He looks at the dragon and says one word, return. The dragon turns and starts attacking the mages who summoned it. They're screaming, asking how, asking what he did, asking if this is real. The protagonist looks at his own hand and genuinely does not know, but the voice in the back of his awareness, the presence that has been there since the altar, the one that said it will always be with him, is very clearly present right now. Tamuji says they are insects. Magical nullification spreads from Zed's body in every direction. The mages try to attack and find their power bouncing back. Their circles start shutting down from the outside. One of them looks at his own arm and cannot feel his mana. One by one, they lose access to everything they have built their entire lives around. Losing mana for a mage is worse than losing a limb. It is losing the fundamental thing that makes them who they are. They drop, they beg, they put their foreheads to the ground, promising they will never act against the Arahan again. The presence says an Arahan feels no pity, then reaches into them and destroys their circuits from the inside. Whatever is flowing through Zed right now is not his power. It is a borrowed inheritance that has been waiting in this bloodline for a generation to find the right person. Then Rooker comes back. He has grace over his shoulder. He sees the aftermath, thinks illusion magic, spots the protagonist standing with his back turned, decides to end it from behind, fires a full sequence directly into the spine, looks down at his own chest. His magic is embedded in himself. Then 5 more strikes hit him from angles that make no physical sense, and Rooker is gone. He did not get a single second. The presence says the one who answered the call, the one who was chosen across time and dimension and delivered to this body on a lightning bolt from the sky, has a job to do. If you like watching a man with nothing left to conquer find the only world that can still test him, if you want to see what happens when Tamuji Arahan's bloodline walks back into the family that threw it away, if you need to know what a 40-year-old world champion does when God gives him a second career inside a fantasy empire that does not know what is coming for it, then this video better have a like on it. Drop it right now. The bell is sitting right there and it has not been hit, and this story is just getting started and you do not want to miss what comes next.